Beloved soul, when a loved one leaves this earthly realm, a silent question stirs in the heart. Have they truly gone? When I look to the sky and whisper their name, do they hear me? When tears fall silently at night, does their soul return to comfort me? Or is the bond of love severed forever by the shadow we call death? This question is not born of idle curiosity but of deep yearning, for love is the thread that binds hearts together, and when the body of a loved one is laid down in the dust of earth, the heart aches to know if that bond still lives on. I have walked among seekers whose eyes were heavy with grief, who held a picture close to their chest and asked me in trembling voice, Master, will I see them again? Do they watch over me? Do they return to visit the home where they once walked beside me? And I tell you, dear ones, not from belief or philosophy alone, but from divine experience. The soul does not die, love does not perish, and the silent, unseen bond between you and your departed family is never broken. Death is not the crushing end of existence that mortal eyes believe it to be. It is but a gentle, passing through a doorway unseen, from one room of God's cosmic mansion into another, from the visible to the invisible, from the dense vibrations of physical matter into the subtler radiance of the astral worlds. And in that journey, the ties of true love remain as golden threads that even death cannot sever. When your loved ones pass from the body, they do not vanish into cold oblivion. They awaken, as from a night's dream, in a realm of light, beauty, and expanded freedom. Yet in the first tender moments after they cross that threshold, many souls still turn their gaze back toward those they love. They feel your cries, your prayers, your longing. Like a traveler who has reached a distant shore, yet stands on the deck of the departing ship, waving farewell with tears of affection, they, too, send blessings across the veil. Some return in subtle ways to assure you that they are near a gentle presence felt beside your bed. A dream so vivid it feels more real than waking life. A sudden warmth or lightness in your heart when you think of them. I say to you with divine certainty, the love you share does not dissolve in the silence of the grave. For love is not of the body, it is of the soul, and the soul is eternal. The great sorrow of humanity is not death itself, but ignorance of this truth. Like children watching a curtain fall at the end of a play, we weep thinking the story has ended, not knowing that another act is already beginning on a higher stage of existence. Come now, beloved soul, and let us walk together beyond the veil of mortal sight. Let me show you, through the eye of spirit, how the soul journeys after death, how bonds of love weave through lifetimes and realms, and how even in the silent stillness of a graveyard, unseen eyes may be watching over you with tender devotion. This is not fantasy or wishful thinking, but the eternal science of the soul revealed by God and confirmed by saints and masters who have crossed and returned to speak of the higher worlds. Sit with me in quiet heart as we begin this divine exploration, that you may know with certainty, when you die or when your loved ones pass before you, the soul is not lost to nothingness. And yes, in ways more profound than human senses can grasp, they do return, they do see you, they do love you still. Beloved, let us first acknowledge the silent, aching fear that dwells in many hearts, the fear that when death comes, the beloved face we once kissed goodnight, the hands that held ours through life's trials, the warm laughter that once filled our homes, will all be lost forever to a great, unfeeling void. This fear creeps into moments of solitude, whispers its questions in the silent hours after loss, and casts a shadow over life itself, because we dread that every tender bond we cherish will be severed by the cold hand of death. I have sat with grieving disciples, mothers who lost a child, husbands and wives who watched their life partner pass away. I have seen their trembling lips ask me, Master, is this the end? Shall I never hold them again? Never see their smile? Never hear their voice calling my name? And though their pain was great, I smiled softly and said, No, beloved, death does not have such power over divine love. What God has united in spirit can never be torn apart by mortal change. This world teaches otherwise. The materialistic mind insists that when breath ceases, consciousness is extinguished like a candle in the wind, that what you love becomes nothing more than dust. This illusion is one of Maya's cruelest tricks, for it blinds humanity to the truth that no soul has ever truly died. Think of a friend who walks into another room of your house while you remain seated where you are. Because you cannot see them through the wall, you might imagine they are gone, but in truth they remain just as alive, just as present, simply moving in a space beyond your current sight. Death is no different. The soul steps out of its worn garment, the physical body, and walks into a luminous chamber of existence, unseen by earthly eyes but very near, very real. The pain of separation you feel is not wrong. It is natural for the human heart to grieve when its beloved is no longer visible to mortal sight. But this sorrow, though real, is based on a half-truth that sees the body vanish, yet knows not where the soul has gone. This is why spiritual understanding is so vital. Without it, we believe love is lost. With it, we know love is not bound by skin, nor limited by breath, nor ended by death. I remember speaking to disciples who felt their deceased parents or children might be lonely in the afterlife. I told them, the soul never leaves the touch of love. Divine bonds are not of earth alone. They are threads of light woven by God's own hands. When you sit in silence, when you pray with an open heart, those threads vibrate with living connection. Though unseen, your love reaches them and theirs returns to you. So let us strip away the false fear that death is a merciless ending. It is not the destroyer of love, but rather a shifting of the stage on which love is expressed. Know this deeply. The eternal soul cannot be imprisoned by a tomb, nor severed from family by death. Instead, it continues, it remembers, and in many ways it draws nearer to those it loves than it could in the limitations of flesh. Come, and I shall show you how the soul moves beyond the mortal shell, how it travels to higher planes of existence, and how even there it turns its gaze toward those it left behind, not to abandon them, but to bless them, comfort them, and guide them until they meet again in light. Beloved child of the infinite, before you can truly understand how a departed soul may visit and watch over their earthly family, you must first awaken to the timeless truth of what you truly are. The greatest tragedy of human existence is not death itself, but ignorance of the soul's eternal nature. Like a king wandering the land in rags, forgetting his royal birthright, man wanders through life believing himself a frail body destined to perish, never realizing that within him burns the deathless flame of spirit. From the dawn of creation, the soul has existed shining, radiant, untouched by birth, untouched by death. When you look into the mirror and see your face aging year by year, when you watch the seasons change and friends come and go, you may think you too are changing, diminishing, destined for an ending. But in the silent depths of your being, beneath thought, beneath feeling, lies a presence that has never altered in all the ages of time. It is the same presence you felt as a child looking at the stars, as a youth dreaming of the future, as an adult facing the trials of life. This I am, this silent witness behind every moment, is the eternal soul, immortal, indestructible, unbound by the comings and goings of the body. The scriptures of East and West declare this truth. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, "The soul is never born, nor does it ever die. It was not created, nor shall it be destroyed. Unborn, eternal, everlasting, it does not perish when the body is slain." And in the Bible, Christ affirms, "Before Abraham was, I am." These are not poetic fancies. They are direct revelations of what the masters have seen with divine vision. Consciousness survives the disintegration of flesh as effortlessly as a man removes an old coat and dons a new one. Death, therefore, is not an end but a change of scenery for the soul. Imagine an actor playing many roles on the stage of life, sometimes wearing the costume of a father, sometimes of a daughter, sometimes of a friend. When the play is done, the actor steps backstage, removes the costume, and rests before the next performance. But the actor never dies with the role he played. So too, the soul sheds the body when its purpose is fulfilled, only to continue the eternal drama of divine evolution. Why then do we grieve as though death has annihilated our beloved? It is because we have mistaken the costume for the being wearing it. The tender smile, the warm embrace, the voice we long to hear, these were but the body's instruments expressing the soul's light. When the body ceases to function, it feels to human senses as if everything we loved has ceased as well. Yet the soul remains fully alive, radiant and aware, simply moving beyond the reach of our physical eyes. When you understand this, a great peace begins to dawn. The fear of death loses its grip, For you realize that you and your loved ones have walked together for lifetimes, each time exchanging temporary forms, while remaining the same undying companions in spirit. Death cannot claim a bond forged in divine love. It can only change the way that bond is experienced. Know, beloved, that even now, as you think of those who have left this earthly plane, their souls are not gone. They live on more free, more luminous, more joyful than before, remembering you with love, as surely as you remember them. And in ways unseen yet deeply felt, they draw near, whispering across the veil of matter to say, I am not gone. I live. I watch. I love you still. This is the promise of spirit, that no true relationship is ever destroyed by time or death. Let this truth comfort your heart as we journey deeper into the mystery of what happens after the soul leaves the body and how it continues to move in love toward those it has known on earth. Beloved seeker of eternal truth, now that you understand that the soul is immortal, let us journey together through the wondrous passage that awaits every soul when it casts off the mortal garment. Death is often feared because its process is hidden from ordinary sight, cloaked in mystery and silence. Yet to those who have pierced the veil of matter through divine realization, death is not a darkness to dread but a luminous dawn, the beginning of a higher and freer existence. When the final breath is drawn and the heart ceases its earthly rhythm, the soul does not vanish into oblivion. In that sacred moment, a great release takes place. The consciousness, long bound to the body's dense vibrations, withdraws inwardly through the spiritual centers of the spine, gathering the life force that had animated every cell. With the gentleness of a mother lifting a sleeping child from its cradle, divine law draws the soul upward, separating it from its earthly form. For a brief moment, many souls experience a panoramic vision of their earthly life, seeing each action, each word, each thought, reflected as if in a great mirror. This is not a judgment imposed by some external power, but an awakening of divine memory, allowing the soul to understand how its earthly choices have shaped its present state. Then, freed from the physical shell, the soul awakens in a world of light, the astral realm. This astral world, beloved, is far more beautiful and vibrant than the coarsely vibrating physical universe you now know. Colors there shimmer with living light, music flows not from instruments but from the very atmosphere itself, and communication is instant and wordless, as souls exchange thought and feeling directly without sound. There is no pain of flesh, no weight of bones to burden movement. The astral body is composed of energy and light, radiant and youthful regardless of the earthly age at which death occurred. In this astral realm, souls find themselves drawn by magnetic law to regions that match their inner vibrations. The loving and kind-hearted awaken in luminous environments of joy and harmony, surrounded by kindred souls whose vibrations resonate with their own. Those whose lives were clouded by selfishness or cruelty may enter darker regions where they face the shadows of their own unhealed tendencies. Yet even there, divine mercy guides them toward redemption and growth. Family bonds are not dissolved in this higher existence. Because true family is a connection of souls bound by shared karma and divine friendship, many find themselves reunited with loved ones who have also shed their mortal forms. Imagine, beloved, a radiant garden where souls meet again, no longer aged, sick, or separated by misunderstanding, but glowing with recognition and love. They embrace not with physical arms, but with waves of joy flowing from soul to soul. Such reunions are real, and they are part of the divine order that comforts and uplifts every soul after death. Beyond the astral plane lies an even subtler realm, the causal world, a domain of pure thought and bliss. Here, the soul is no longer clothed even in light and energy, but exists as a spark of divine consciousness, free from the need for form. It is in this causal heaven that the soul begins to approach its highest destiny, preparing for eventual liberation into oneness with spirit. Yet many souls, by their own longing or unfinished karmic duties, return to the astral realm or even to earth for new incarnations. The astral and causal worlds are not eternal resting places, but way stations on the grand journey of evolution, where the soul learns, heals, and chooses its next steps toward ultimate freedom. Beloved, knowing this, you see now that death is not a cruel thief stealing your loved ones away. It is a gentle guide leading them into a higher classroom of divine experience, where they continue to grow and remember those they left behind. In truth, many do not wish to leave you entirely. From their vantage in the astral realm, they watch with love, sometimes returning in subtle ways to reassure and guide you. In our next step together, let us understand how these visiting souls move across the boundary between astral and earthly life, and how you might sense their presence even now, in whispers of intuition and unseen blessings carried to you on the winds of spirit. Beloved soul, now that we have journeyed together through the astral and causal realms, where the departed awaken after shedding the mortal body, let us turn our gaze back toward the earthly home they left behind. For many hearts still ache with a quiet question. Even if they are radiant and free in that higher world, do they remember us? Do they ever return to see the home where their laughter once echoed, the family they loved so dearly? Or does death sever even the simplest earthly connection? Let me speak to you from the vision that divine wisdom bestows. Yes, beloved, souls can and often do visit their earthly families. Love, being of spirit, cannot be erased by the passage from body to astral light. In fact, freed from the limitations of flesh, many souls feel their bonds of affection even more deeply and purely than before. They remember every tender moment, every sacrifice, every silent prayer shared with their loved ones. These memories are not burdensome chains. They are luminous threads of divine magnetism that continue to unite families across realms. In the early stages after death, many souls linger close to their earthly homes, not as restless ghosts, but as gentle guardians moved by divine compassion. A mother who has departed may draw near to her children, feeling their tears and seeking to soothe their grief. A husband or wife may watch over their beloved partner, whispering words of comfort the physical ear cannot hear, but which the soul may sense as sudden waves of warmth, a fleeting fragrance once shared, or a dream so vivid it feels more real than waking life. This visiting is made possible because the astral body is not bound by walls, distance, or time. The soul can traverse realms with the speed of thought. Imagine, beloved, a traveler who has reached a shining city of light, yet still longs to send a letter back to the village where loved ones wait. In the astral world, no letter is needed. A single intention allows the soul to be present in the home they cherish. This presence is subtle but perceptible to hearts that are calm and open. There are divine laws governing these returns. Advanced souls, those who have awakened spiritually during earthly life or in the astral, can consciously bless and comfort family members, sending currents of peace that uplift the mind and spirit. They do so not to prolong earthly attachment, but to aid the living in releasing grief and turning toward higher understanding. In some cases, departed souls fulfill unspoken promises or unfinished duties through these visitations, guiding children in unseen ways, inspiring loved ones to make wise choices, or even preventing harm through sudden, intuitive warnings. Saints and masters have spoken of this countless times. Yogananda himself described how his own guru, Sri Yukteswar, visited him from the astral realm, radiant with divine light, speaking as tangibly as when alive in the body. This was no dream, but a conscious meeting beyond mortal limitations. If masters can appear so vividly, know that even ordinary souls, though less radiant, may still come quietly to sit beside you, to hold you in unseen arms of comfort. And yet, beloved, not every soul returns often. Some, having fulfilled their earthly ties and released attachments, soar quickly into higher regions where longing for physical connection is dissolved in divine bliss. They do not forget their loved ones, but they perceive connection in a new, more universal way. Like a drop of water merging into the ocean, they feel united with every soul, including their earthly family, without needing to appear physically. Whether they visit briefly or commune silently in spirit, no soul ever loses its love for you. Death cannot erase true bonds. Even now, as you listen to these words, your departed family members may be near, rejoicing that you are opening your heart to divine understanding. In the next part of our journey, we shall explore how karma weaves families together beyond a single lifetime, how the souls you have called father, mother, child, or friend may return to walk beside you again and again, helping one another grow in wisdom and love until, together, you ascend into the everlasting joy of divine reunion. Beloved, to understand why souls visit after death, and why bonds seem to transcend even the limits of earthly lifetimes, we must look deeper into the divine tapestry that binds families together through the cosmic law of karma. Families are not accidental gatherings of strangers randomly placed in a household. They are eternal companions of the soul, traveling together like a caravan across the deserts of time, helping one another find the way back to the oasis of God's love. From lifetime to lifetime, karma, the energy woven from our past actions, words, and thoughts, acts as a sacred magnet, drawing souls back together to complete unfinished lessons, to repay debts of kindness or resolve conflicts, and most importantly, to deepen their capacity for divine love. A child born into your arms today may once have been your parent guiding you through life's lessons. A sibling you quarrel with may have been a companion in many past incarnations where both of you learned patience and forgiveness through the trials of shared experience. When we love someone deeply, when we form strong bonds of affection or even of pain, those vibrations do not end with the death of the body. They imprint upon the soul, resonating like a sacred echo that calls souls to reunite in future incarnations. Just as certain melodies played on an instrument cause another nearby to vibrate in harmony, so too does karmic resonance cause souls to find each other again. Many wonder why certain families seem bound by shared struggles, or why children sometimes display instincts and wisdom far beyond their years. Often this is because the family has been walking a shared spiritual journey for centuries, returning again and again to face similar lessons, refining one another like gold tested by fire. These bonds are not chains meant to imprison. They are threads of divine opportunity, allowing each soul to support the other's gradual ascent toward higher consciousness. True stories abound of young children recalling with stunning clarity events and relationships from past lives, remembering names, places, and even vows of love or duty shared with their current family members in another era. These are not fabrications of youthful imagination. They are glimpses of the soul's memory, a quiet confirmation that love weaves across lifetimes far more intricately than we can see in one human existence. Even when relationships are marked by conflict, these too are bound by karma. A rival in one life may return as a brother or sister in another, so that forgiveness, which was withheld before, can finally blossom. A parent who failed to protect or nurture a child may incarnate as a devoted offspring in another lifetime, fulfilling the love once denied. Such is the wisdom of divine law. It tirelessly arranges life's circumstances to heal every wound and perfect every bond until only pure, selfless love remains between souls. Beloved, this is why even after death, souls are drawn back to visit those they loved or hurt on earth. The unfinished threads of karma call them homeward like a beacon, urging reconciliation, protection, or simple reassurance that love endures beyond the grave. Sometimes, after dwelling for a time in the astral realms, the same soul may be reborn in the same family, returning not as a ghostly visitor but as a newborn child, a niece, a nephew walking once again through your home, so that you may continue your shared spiritual journey. When you understand this truth, fear of separation begins to dissolve. You see that no soul is ever truly lost to you. That divine law ensures you will meet again and again until every lesson is learned, every shadow transformed into light. The companions you cherish today are ancient friends of your soul. The children you cradle may have once cradled you. And long after this earthly drama has ended, you shall find one another in God's embrace, perfected and free, radiant with the joy of eternal reunion. Next, beloved, let us journey further into the mystery of spiritual evolution, where familial love expands beyond earthly roles. We shall see how the soul, freed from mortal attachment, awakens to a love so vast that it embraces not only family but all beings as expressions of the one eternal spirit. Beloved soul, as the wheel of karma turns and families reunite across lifetimes, a deeper transformation begins to unfold within each soul. Through these recurring bonds of mother and child, husband and wife, sister and brother, friend and companion, the soul gradually learns the lessons of compassion, sacrifice, patience, forgiveness, and divine service. Yet there comes a moment in the journey of evolution when love begins to transcend the boundaries of mortal relationships. A greater realization dawns, that every soul is kin, every being is family, for all are radiant sparks of the same infinite spirit. In the astral realms, where souls awaken after death, this higher truth begins to shine more clearly. Freed from the dense limitations of flesh, the departed feel love not only for their closest earthly companions, but for countless other souls with whom they share a spiritual resonance. In that luminous plane, communication flows silently through waves of understanding, and affection is no longer bound by words, bloodlines, or earthly memories. Souls recognize one another intuitively, as though remembering meetings that occurred not just in one life, but in many lives before, and even in realms beyond the physical. In this awakened state, familial bonds are not diminished, they are magnified and purified. The petty quarrels, misunderstandings, and imperfections of earthly relationships dissolve like morning mist, leaving only the pure essence of love. A soul may gaze upon one who was once a stern father or a misunderstood child, and see instead a radiant companion, walking beside them on the eternal pilgrimage toward God. Every shared joy and sorrow is understood in perfect clarity as part of the divine choreography designed to bring both souls closer to spiritual freedom. Yet this higher evolution brings something even greater. As the soul matures, it no longer feels love as belonging to a few chosen individuals. It begins to recognize the divine presence in every face, every creature, every atom of creation. Just as a river flowing toward the sea gradually merges with other streams, forgetting its smallness as it approaches the vast embrace of the ocean, so too does the soul's personal love expand into universal love. This is why the saints and masters are called fathers and mothers of all humanity. Having transcended ego and mortal limitation, their hearts beat not for a single family alone, but for all beings, known and unknown. Yogananda himself once said that his love was not confined to his earthly relatives, but that he felt each disciple, each seeker, as part of his own eternal family, tied together by the unbreakable thread of spirit. When a soul reaches this state of higher evolution, even if it returns to earthly life, its relationships are transformed. It may still walk as a parent or sibling, but its love is no longer bound by possessiveness or fear of loss. It loves with divine detachmenta, love that gives freely, without demanding return, a love that knows it can never be severed, for it flows directly from God, the source of all connection. In this way, mortal bonds are not destroyed but transfigured. What began as clinging attachment gradually becomes divine friendship, and what began as narrow familial love blossoms into universal compassion. From this place of realization, death no longer casts a shadow. Whether loved ones are near or far, in body or beyond it, the awakened soul feels their presence ever near in spirit. Beloved, this is the destiny toward which karma and reincarnation gently guide every family. The lessons of love you experience with your earthly kin are stepping stones, leading you upward until one day you shall stand with them not as limited personalities bound by time and form, but as radiant beings united in God's eternal light. Next, let us explore the mysterious ways that communication continues across realms, even as souls ascend to these higher states. We shall see how, through meditation, prayer, and subtle intuition, living family members can commune with those who have departed, bridging the seeming gap between earth and astral heavens with the golden thread of divine consciousness. Beloved one, even as the soul ascends into the radiant expanses of the astral world, even as it begins to awaken to the higher currents of universal love, the ties of divine friendship with earthly family do not vanish like smoke in the wind. Love is not destroyed by spiritual growth. It becomes more refined, more radiant, and more powerful than ever. And because love is an energy of spirit, unbound by walls of flesh or barriers of matter, it can and often does reach back across realms to touch the hearts of those still walking the earthly path. In the astral plane, communication is not bound by voice or language. Souls there communicate through a direct sharing of thought and feeling, a communion so intimate and pure that even the deepest words of earthly speech seem pale by comparison. When such a soul wishes to comfort or bless its earthly family, it simply focuses its loving intention, and instantly, like a beam of golden light, its vibration travels across dimensions. The receptive heart of the living can feel this as a sudden warmth, a wave of peace, an inner knowing that the departed is near. Many grieving hearts have shared stories of dreams that felt more real than waking life visions, in which a departed loved one appeared radiant and full of life, offering words of comfort or guidance. Beloved, these are often not mere dreams but actual astral visitations. When the body sleeps, the soul partly withdraws from its physical shell and becomes more sensitive to the astral realm. In that state, departed souls can draw close, meeting their loved ones in luminous, dreamlike settings that allow for true reunion, even if only for a fleeting moment. Some, with heightened intuition or through the grace of meditation, can sense departed family members even while awake. They may feel an unseen presence in the room, hear a loving thought whispered silently in the mind, or experience sudden inspiration in moments of decision. This is because communication with souls is not a physical act. It is vibrational. When grief is quieted and the mind becomes still, the golden thread of divine love vibrates strongly enough to carry messages across the veil. Masters and saints speak of this reality often. Yogananda himself recounted meeting his departed mother in visions and sensing the guiding hand of his guru long after Sri Yukteswar had left the body. These experiences are not the product of imagination. They are glimpses of a spiritual law. Wherever there is true love, no distance, whether measured by miles or dimensions, can break communion. But beloved, there is an important key to this communication. Heavy grief and clinging sorrow can act like storm clouds that distort the clear signal of divine connection. Just as a radio cannot tune to a distant station amid loud interference, so the heart cannot easily feel astral blessings when overwhelmed by despair. It is natural to mourn, but the highest way to stay connected to departed souls is to uplift your own consciousness, to enter calm prayer, deep meditation, and loving remembrance. In those sacred moments of spiritual stillness, you align with the very vibration where departed souls dwell, and communion flows as naturally as sunlight through an open window. And know this also: prayer and meditation do not only help the living, they uplift the departed. When you send thoughts of light, peace, and divine joy toward a loved one who has passed, that soul feels it directly in the astral plane. Your prayers become a bridge of radiant energy, guiding them upward, soothing their journey, and reminding them that love has not been lost but transformed into something far more enduring. This is the holy secret of astral communion, that death cannot silence love's dialogue. Through dreams, through intuition, through meditation, the song of soul friendship continues to play softly between worlds, a melody composed not by words or actions but by the eternal harmony of spirit itself. Beloved, now that you understand how this golden thread allows souls to reach across realms, let us journey into the sacred practices that allow you to consciously help your departed loved ones and feel their blessings more clearly. Beloved seeker of eternal truth, having opened your heart to the understanding that death does not sever the golden thread of love between souls, you must now know that you are not helpless in your connection with those who have crossed into the astral world. Through prayer, meditation, and acts of selfless devotion, you can send them blessings that uplift their journey, soothe any unrest they may feel, and draw your hearts closer together in the silent language of spirit. When a loved one departs from the physical body, their soul begins adjusting to the luminous astral plane. Some souls, particularly those who were burdened by sorrow, regret, or confusion in earthly life, may initially feel disoriented or tethered to their past attachments. Others may rise quickly, joyfully taking on the lightness of their new astral form. Regardless of where they are on this journey, the loving prayers of family members on earth act as a divine current, guiding and comforting them as they navigate the unfamiliar terrain of life beyond matter. Consider prayer not as words flung into a distant heaven, but as radiant streams of energy flowing directly to the one you love. When your heart turns upward in sincere remembrance of God, and you think lovingly of your departed, your thoughts become living vibrations that travel instantaneously to them. Just as two tuning forks hum in harmony when one is struck, the vibration of your soul harmonizes with theirs, no matter the dimensional distance. The soul receiving these blessings feels warmth, light, and peace, like a child feeling its mother's gentle caress across the boundaries of a dream. To help your departed loved ones most effectively, approach prayer with stillness and faith. Sit in a quiet place, lift your eyes to the spiritual eye, and inwardly speak to God. Beloved Spirit, I offer thee my love for this soul. May thy light guide them. May thy joy surround them. May they awaken quickly to thy eternal peace. Feel as though your love and divine light are enveloping them completely, dissolving any shadows of fear or sorrow that might linger. When you do this with calm conviction, you become a true spiritual helper, a bridge through which divine grace can flow into their journey. Meditation is an even more powerful way to stay connected. When you enter the inner sanctuary of stillness, beyond restless thoughts and bodily awareness, you touch the very realm where departed souls dwell. In deep meditation, it is possible to sense their presence as flashes of light, waves of bliss, or silent words impressed upon your consciousness. Some experience a vision of their loved ones, smiling, radiant, assuring them that all is well. These are not fantasies, they are moments of soul-to-soul contact made possible because your consciousness has risen to meet theirs in spirit. Selfless acts of kindness done in their memory also create ripples that bless their soul. When you give food to the hungry, speak words of comfort to someone in need, or offer service to the world with a pure heart, and dedicate that merit to your departed family member, a portion of the spiritual upliftment generated by those acts reaches them instantly. Yogananda himself taught that prayers and good deeds offered for the departed are never lost. They strengthen their soul and speed their evolution toward divine light. And know this, beloved, as you help them, they too help you. From their astral vantage, they often watch over you, silently guiding you towards safety in moments of danger, sending sudden intuition to steer you away from harmful choices, or comforting you during trials. Though you may not always perceive it clearly, your departed loved ones remain guardians of your path, their love transformed into unseen acts of grace that shape your life gently from beyond the veil. This is the true nature of staying connected after death. It is not clinging in sorrow, but meeting one another in spirit's light, blessing each other with divine love that no mortal change can undo. When you embrace this higher way of communion, fear dissolves and grief softens, replaced by a serene confidence that you and your loved ones are journeying together still, each step bringing you closer to eternal reunion in God's joy. Beloved, let us now move toward the culmination of this sacred journey, where we glimpse the final truth, that death, separation, and even astral visits are but temporary chapters in the grand story of divine unity. In the highest realization of spirit, there is no parting, no searching, no longing, only everlasting oneness, where all souls meet as children of the infinite. Beloved, having walked with me through the veils of earthly death, through the radiant halls of the astral realms, and through the golden threads of karma that bind souls across lifetimes, let us now lift our gaze higher still to the summit of divine truth, where the final revelation of love's eternal nature is made clear. Every visit from a departed soul, every dream, every unseen blessing that whispers to your heart is but a temporary bridge, a merciful reminder that love survives beyond death. Yet even these moments of connection are stepping stones toward a greater realization, that in spirit there is no true separation at all. The soul's longing to visit family, the desire to return to earthly homes, and even the cycles of reincarnation are born from the perception that we are apart. But when divine wisdom fully dawns, this illusion vanishes like mist under the morning sun. In the highest states of consciousness, where saints and liberated masters dwell, the soul knows itself as inseparable from the infinite. In that radiant awareness, there are no walls of dimension, no boundaries of birth or death, no gaps of time to bridge. All souls are seen as rays of the same eternal light, each shining uniquely yet inseparably part of the one. In this divine vision, to see one's soul is to see all. To love one is to embrace all in spirit's boundless heart. This is why the great masters could look upon strangers and call them brothers, sisters, children of eternity. Having awakened from the dream of separateness, they knew that the father you grieve for, the child you long for, the friend you believe you have lost all, are even now alive and luminous in the one cosmic embrace. In the silence of meditation, this truth can be felt directly. Beyond words, beyond form, you sense the living presence of every soul you have ever loved, not as distant beings, but as streams merging into the ocean of your own expanded consciousness. And beloved, in that ocean there is no possibility of losing one another ever again. Family bonds that were once limited to brief lifetimes on earth are transformed into eternal spiritual friendship. The pain of parting is dissolved forever, for there is nowhere that spirit does not unite you. This is the ultimate reunion, not in a single house on earth, not even in radiant gardens of the astral plane, but in God Himself, where every soul you cherish shines like a star within the infinite sky of divine bliss. The Masters assure us that this is not a poetic comfort meant to ease grief, but an unchanging spiritual law. Yogananda once said, "When you know yourself as the soul, you will realize that you and your loved ones were never truly apart. Through God consciousness, you will know them again not in shadow, but in their eternal splendor." So do not think of death as the closing of a door. Think of it as the final step in a long journey, leading all souls back into one celestial home. Every prayer you offer, every act of kindness, every meditation that lifts your consciousness toward the divine is a step closer to that eternal reunion. And when you arrive, when divine light fills you completely, you will look around and see not only your earthly family, but every soul that has walked beside you through the ages, now free, radiant, and rejoicing in the everlasting embrace of the infinite Father-Mother. Close your eyes now, beloved, and feel this truth not as words, but as living reality. Place your hands upon your heart and breathe slowly. Imagine golden rays of divine light expanding from within you, stretching across the universe, touching every soul you have ever loved. Feel them smiling, radiant, ageless, united with you in this very moment in spirit. Whisper silently, "We are one in God. We were never apart. Together, we live forever in the light of the eternal." Remain in this stillness for a moment. Let peace wash over you. Know that even now, your loved ones are near, not as shadows returning briefly to a fading world, but as everlasting companions walking with you toward the boundless joy of divine freedom. This is the final truth. The soul does not leave. The bond does not die. And in God's infinite light, all families are reunited for all eternity. Beloved one, let us now gather everything we have shared and weave it into a single, flowing river of truth. A message that moves without interruption, like the eternal current of spirit itself. When a loved one passes from this world, your heart aches as though a piece of you has been torn away. You stand by their resting place, hands trembling, whispering their name into a silence that feels impenetrable. In those moments, a question rises that no earthly comfort can answer. Where have they gone? Do they remember me? Will I ever feel their embrace again? The world, steeped in material vision, tells you that death is an ending, that the bond of love is severed, that you are now alone. But beloved, I come to tell you not from belief or imagination, but from divine realization. Love cannot die, the soul cannot perish, and even now, unseen eyes may be watching over you with tender devotion. Death is not the end of existence. It is merely a doorway, a gentle passage from one room of God's cosmic mansion into another. When the last breath leaves the body and the eyes close to this world, the soul awakens as from a long dream. No longer weighed down by flesh or bone, it rises into a realm of light, the astral world, where colors shine brighter, music flows like living rivers, and every movement is effortless as thought. There, souls who have loved one another are drawn together by divine magnetism, embracing again in joy, unclouded by earthly sorrows. In the astral plane, a departed mother holds her child once more, not with arms of flesh, but with waves of radiant love. A father meets his son, a friend finds his lifelong companion, and they speak without words, knowing each other completely in the silent language of spirit. Even if their earthly paths were marked by misunderstandings or pain, those burdens dissolve there like shadows fleeing the dawn, leaving only the truth of their bond, refined and eternal. Yet many souls do not remain distant from their earthly family. Freed from the body, they often turn back toward the home they left, moved by compassion and love. They can travel with the speed of thought, crossing the veil between worlds in an instant. Though unseen, they may stand beside your bed as you sleep, whispering peace into your dreams. You may feel them as a sudden warmth, a comforting presence, a fragrance long forgotten yet instantly familiar. These are not illusions. These are visits of the soul, quiet assurances that love remains and that separation is but an earthly shadow of a higher reality. In dreams, in moments of still intuition, you may even see them as they now are radiant, smiling, more alive than ever before. When this happens, know that your soul has risen partly into their realm for a fleeting moment, bridging the gulf of perception that death seems to create. The departed long to comfort the living, to tell you, "I am not gone. I see you." I love you still. And through meditation and prayer, you too can send them blessings that they feel directly, guiding them gently along their luminous journey toward higher worlds. This bond of connection does not end after one lifetime. Karma, the divine law of cause and effect, draws souls together across many incarnations, like threads weaving through the fabric of time. The child you cradle may have once been your parent. The sister you quarrel with may have been a rival in another age. The friend who seems to understand you without words may have walked beside you through lifetimes of shared joy and sorrow. Families are eternal caravans of souls, journeying together through earth and astral worlds, learning, forgiving, and deepening their love until it becomes pure, selfless, and divine. As the soul evolves spiritually, love begins to transcend the boundaries of mortal attachment. In higher realms of consciousness, familial bonds are not erased but magnified and purified. You will look upon those you once called mother or son and see them not as separate individuals bound only by blood, but as radiant companions, divine sparks of God traveling with you toward liberation. And as this realization expands, love grows universal, embracing not just a few but all beings as brothers and sisters in the one cosmic family of spirit. Even now, while you walk this earthly path, you can touch this truth. In meditation, when the mind grows still and the heart turns upward in devotion, the veil between worlds begins to lift. In the silent depths of spirit, you may feel the living presence of those you thought you lost. Without words or form, their essence merges with yours, and you know beyond all doubt that separation has never truly existed. In your prayers, send them love. Visualize them bathed in golden light, freed of pain and sorrow, rising in joy toward divine freedom. As you do this, you uplift them, helping their soul move swiftly toward higher realms of bliss. And when you act with kindness, when you serve others selflessly, dedicate these merits to their soul, knowing that your love reaches them instantly, blessing them beyond earthly measure. But beloved, these comforts, these visitations, dreams, prayers, and karmic reunions are only glimpses of a greater destiny. One day, through spiritual awakening, you will see with the same divine vision as the masters. You will realize that there has never been a moment of true separation, not even in death. In the expanded consciousness of spirit, you will behold all souls you have ever loved, shining as stars within the boundless sky of your own eternal being. This is the promise of God, that no love is wasted, no soul is lost, and in the end, every family, every friendship, every bond of true affection is gathered into the infinite embrace of divine joy. The mansion of eternity has many rooms, but all doors lead to the same cosmic home, where you and your loved ones will meet again, perfected in light, free from sorrow, rejoicing forever as radiant children of the infinite. Close your eyes now, place your hands upon your heart and breathe softly. Imagine golden rays of light expanding from your soul, touching every face you have ever loved, whether living or departed. Feel them near you now, not as shadows of memory, but as living presences entwined eternally with your own. Whisper silently, "We are one in spirit. We have never been apart. Together, we live forever in God's light." Remain in this stillness for a moment. Let peace fill every corner of your being. Know, beloved, that even now, your departed loved ones are near, not as fragile echoes returning briefly to a fading world, but as eternal companions walking with you toward the boundless joy of divine freedom. Death cannot touch this truth. Separation cannot obscure this light. In God's infinite love, all souls are united, now and forevermore. Beloved soul, take a deep, slow breath now. And as you do, let us allow these truths to sink deeper, not merely as words heard by the mind, but as a living vibration felt in the heart and the very breath of your being. Inhale gently and think silently, "I am eternal spirit." Hold that breath for a moment, feeling its stillness, and then exhale slowly with the inner whisper, "Death cannot touch me." Pause here in this calm. In this stillness, imagine the faces of your loved ones, those who walk beside you now, and those who have stepped through the invisible doorway of death. With another deep breath, silently affirm, "You are with me still. We are one in God's love." As you breathe out, release the weight of grief, surrendering it into the hands of the divine, trusting that the golden thread of love binds you forever to those souls. Let these breath prayers guide you into inner communion. Inhale. We have never been apart. Hold. Feel their presence in the silent light of spirit. Exhale. Together we walk toward eternal joy. Again, inhale. I send you love. Hold. Imagine streams of radiant light flowing from your heart into theirs across the astral sky. Exhale, and I feel your blessings returning to me. Each breath you take in this way becomes a bridge between worlds. Each silent affirmation, a key unlocking a door that no earthly wall or cosmic veil can close. If you practice this daily in stillness, you will find that the presence of those you have loved and lost is not truly lost at all. It is felt more clearly than before, for it vibrates in the inner sanctuary of the soul. Now, beloved, gently lift your gazana with the physical eyes, but inwardly, toward the divine point between the eyebrows, the spiritual eye. In silent prayer say, Heavenly Father, Divine Mother, Beloved Spirit, let me feel Thee in those I love, and let me feel them in Thee. Let no death nor passage of time separate us from the one eternal flame of Thy presence. Rest in this prayer for a moment, breathing softly, letting peace settle upon you like a warm mantle. Feel now that your entire being is luminous, surrounded by a sphere of golden light. In that light, see the smiling faces of those you thought you had lost. They are not gone, they are rays of the same sun, shining beside you. You may sense their silent blessings, their joy, knowing that you have turned inward to find them in spirit. Together, you all rest in this eternal light, bathed in divine comfort, held forever in the embrace of the infinite. Finally, beloved, affirm with me, I am not a body, I am the eternal soul. My loved ones and I are bound forever in divine love. Death is but a shadow. In God's light, we are eternally one. Breathe these truths into every cell of your being until they become unshakable, not mere beliefs, but your living reality. Let this realization accompany you into every dawn, every sunset, every moment of remembrance. And know that as you grow closer to the divine, the bond with your departed family deepens, not fades, until the day comes when, in full spiritual awakening, you shall see them not as fleeting figures from the past, but as radiant souls walking with you in the everlasting garden of spirit. Beloved, as we move deeper into this divine revelation, let us allow the very rhythm of our breath and the quiet pulse of the soul to guide this final ascent toward understanding and peace. The truths we have spoken are not meant to linger only in the intellect. They are living vibrations meant to be absorbed, breathed in like celestial nectar, and anchored in the eternal consciousness that you truly are. Take a slow breath now and imagine that you are no longer confined to the walls of this room, this moment in time, or even this physical body. As you inhale, feel your consciousness expand like an infinite sky. The sorrow of separation that weighed upon you begins to dissolve like clouds before the morning sun. Hold the breath gently and silently affirm, I am more than this mortal frame. I am a child of eternity. Then exhale with a soft whisper from your soul. In spirit, nothing is lost, nothing is broken. Visualize yourself standing in a radiant field of golden light. In this divine expanse, you see pathways of shimmering energy connecting you to every soul you have ever loved. Some still walk with you on earth, others have stepped into the astral gardens beyond the veil. Yet all these pathways meet in a single, brilliant, Sunthi infinite spirit, shining at the center of this field. Inhale again, feeling that light entering your being. Hold it within and know, this is our eternal meeting place, this is home. Exhale, releasing all fear, all grief, letting your soul rest in that celestial assurance. Beloved, as your consciousness rises higher, imagine now that you are joined by those dear ones who have passed from this earthly stage. See their forms glowing with youthful radiance, free from every earthly ailment and sorrow. Feel their arms, not of flesh but of living light, embrace you with a love more powerful than anything words could convey. You look into their eyes and see not sadness, not regret, but the eternal joy of spirit, recognizing spirit. In that moment, you know beyond all doubt, death was never a parting, only a temporary illusion. Breathe with me again. Inhale. Love unites us forever. Hold, sensing their presence glowing within your heart. Exhale. We walk together toward divine freedom. Now, beloved, Lift your gaze once more to the inner spiritual eye. In that silent stillness, imagine a divine hand resting gently upon your head, a hand that carries the power of all saints and masters, of angels and heavenly guides who have watched over you since before time began. Feel divine grace pouring through that touch, healing every wound of separation, every shadow of grief. Silently affirm, with God's light, I am whole. With God's joy, my family and I are forever one. As you sit bathed in this grace, realize that this moment is not only a vision but a preview of the final liberation awaiting every soul. There will come a day, beloved, when the journey of lifetimes concludes, when every karmic bond is untangled, and every soul you cherish is gathered together in the boundless light of spirit. No more births, no more deaths, no more partings, only the unbroken music of divine joy resounding through eternity. Let us seal this journey with a final affirmation. I am eternal spirit. My loved ones and I are forever united in God's light. Death cannot touch divine love. We live together in everlasting freedom. Sit now in perfect stillness, letting these truths permeate every breath and thought. Feel your soul shining brighter than the sun, radiating love to all beings, living and departed. Know this truth forever. When you die, or when your loved ones leave before you, no distance, no veil, no darkness can sever the divine bond that ties you together. In spirit, you have never been apart, and you never shall be. Beloved soul, as this sacred journey draws toward its completion, let us now enter the deepest stillness where words fall away and only the vibration of spirit remains. What we have explored is not merely a teaching to be remembered, it is an eternal experience to be lived, a truth that must seep into every fiber of your being until it becomes as natural as the beating of your heart or the breath that moves quietly within you. Close your eyes now, beloved. Lift your gaze gently to the point between your eyebrows, where the light of the soul silently shines. As you inhale, imagine drawing in a current of golden divine light. Feel this light filling your chest, washing away the last shadows of fear and sorrow. Hold this breath gently, as though you are holding eternity itself, and silently affirm, I am eternal spirit, untouched by death, unbroken by time. As you exhale, release all doubt, all grief, all questions into the radiant arms of God. In thy love, all souls are one. In thy light, we are forever reunited. Now, beloved, imagine yourself standing on the threshold of this earthly world. Before you lies a shimmering bridge of light, stretching beyond sight, leading into realms of celestial beauty and boundless peace. As you step onto this bridge, you feel a presence approaching. One by one, souls you have loved, whether they still walk the earth or have crossed beyond, appear before you in radiant astral forms. They smile, glowing with youth and vitality, their eyes filled with divine joy. You walk together hand in hand, knowing no fear, no separation. Each step carries you higher, lighter, freer, until at last you reach the end of the bridge where a great ocean of divine light spreads infinitely before you. Here, beloved, there is no you and them, no living and departed. There is only spirit, boundless, formless, eternal. You feel every loved one as waves of joy rising from this cosmic ocean, and you know yourself also as that joy, indivisible, everlasting. From this state of divine realization, you look back upon the dramas of life and death and see them for what they are, gentle dreams within the mind of God, meant only to teach, to awaken, to draw every soul into this one eternal home. Take another slow breath, feeling this truth not as imagination but as a living presence. Inhale deeply and silently affirm, I and my loved ones are rays of one eternal light. Hold this breath in reverence, sensing that you are breathing not air but spirit itself. Exhale softly, forever united in God, forever free in divine joy. Beloved, this is the final gift of understanding, that you have never truly lost anyone, and you never will. The souls you love are not wandering in distant darkness, they are carried in the very breath of spirit, intertwined with your own essence like golden threads in the same eternal tapestry. When your own time comes to leave this world, you will not step into a cold unknown, but into the radiant embrace of every soul you have ever cherished, meeting them not in shadow but in light, not in fleeting dreams, but in everlasting freedom. Sit now in silent gratitude. Place your hands over your heart and feel its quiet rhythm. With each beat, know that divine love is pulsing through you, connecting you to every soul across all worlds. Whisper softly within, "Thank you, Divine Mother, for eternal love. Thank you for uniting all souls in thy light. Guide me to live this truth and to carry thy peace to others who grieve, that they too may awaken to our eternal bond." Remain in this silence for as long as you wish, bathing in the certainty of Spirit's promise. There is no true separation, not now, not ever. The journey of the soul is endless, the bond of love unbreakable, and in the infinite heart of God, we are all one, forevermore. When ringing suddenly appears in your ears with no physical cause, your spiritual hearing is beginning to awaken. You're starting to perceive the sacred sounds that exist beyond ordinary physical reality, the same divine vibrations that mystics and saints have used for centuries to commune with God. This isn't a symptom to cure. It's a spiritual gift to cultivate and understand. Most people try to stop these sounds, but I'm going to show you how to work with them to accelerate your spiritual evolution. What you've been experiencing isn't random noise or medical concern. It's the universe teaching you to hear with your soul rather than just your physical ears. In the next 45 minutes, you're going to discover the profound spiritual significance behind unexplained ear ringing and learn how to interpret these divine communications. You'll understand why these sounds occur at specific moments, what different types of ringing mean, and most importantly, how to use these experiences to deepen your connection with spiritual guidance. You'll learn to distinguish between ordinary tinnitus and genuine spiritual phenomena, discover the ancient practices that help you receive clearer divine messages through sound, and understand how these experiences indicate your spiritual evolution and awakening psychic abilities. This knowledge will transform mysterious ear ringing from an annoying distraction into a valuable spiritual tool that connects you directly with divine guidance, protective spiritual beings, and higher dimensions of consciousness that are always trying to support your spiritual journey. I know how confusing and sometimes concerning these unexplained ear-ringing experiences can be. You might have consulted doctors who found nothing physically wrong, leaving you wondering if you're imagining things or developing a medical condition. Perhaps you've noticed these sounds occur at significant moments, during prayer, meditation, or when you're thinking about important decisions. The truth is, your spiritual sensitivity is awakening, and these sounds are evidence of your expanding consciousness rather than signs of physical problems. Throughout history, mystics, saints, and spiritually gifted individuals have experienced these divine sounds as their awareness opened to higher spiritual dimensions. What most people don't realize is that we're all equipped with spiritual hearing that can perceive sounds beyond the ordinary physical range. These abilities often awaken gradually as we grow spiritually, and the sudden appearance of unexplained sounds is frequently the first sign that your psychic senses are developing. What I'm going to share comes from decades of spiritual practice and communion with divine guidance, combined with teachings from the ancient spiritual traditions that understood these phenomena as sacred communications rather than medical curiosities. Today, we'll explore 4 profound dimensions of spiritual hearing that will transform how you understand these mysterious sounds. First, I'll reveal what's actually happening when you experience unexplained ear ringing, the spiritual mechanics behind these sounds, and why they appear at specific moments in your spiritual development. Then, we'll discover how to distinguish between different types of spiritual sounds and what each one means. You'll learn to recognize communications from spiritual guides, warnings about energy shifts, signs of spiritual protection, and notifications that your psychic abilities are awakening. Next, I'll teach you the ancient practices for developing your spiritual hearing and learning to receive clear guidance through these divine sounds. You'll discover meditation techniques, prayer practices, and awareness exercises that help you become a clear receiver of spiritual communication. Finally, we'll explore how to integrate this spiritual hearing into your daily life, using these divine sounds to guide your decisions, protect your energy, and maintain constant connection with the spiritual beings who are always trying to support your highest good. But here's what might surprise you most. These sounds aren't random or meaningless. They're part of a sophisticated communication system that connects you with divine intelligence. Once you learn this spiritual language, you'll never feel alone or without guidance again. What we'll discover today will open doorways to spiritual dimensions that most people never access, and transform these mysterious sounds into one of your most valuable spiritual gifts. So prepare to awaken your divine hearing and discover the sacred communications that have been surrounding you all along. My dear friend, to understand the spiritual significance of ear ringing, you must first realize that what you call your physical body is actually composed of multiple layers of energy that extend far beyond your visible form. These energy layers, which ancient traditions call your aura or subtle bodies, contain spiritual centers that process information from dimensions beyond ordinary physical reality. Your ears are not just organs for hearing physical sounds, they're also gateways for receiving spiritual vibrations from higher realms. Just as your physical ears have complex mechanisms for detecting air vibrations and converting them into the sounds you hear, your spiritual hearing centers can detect energy vibrations from divine sources and translate them into the experiences you know as unexplained ear ringing. When these spiritual hearing centers begin to awaken, which happens naturally as your consciousness expands through spiritual practice or divine grace, you start perceiving sounds that have no physical source. This isn't malfunction, it's activation. Your spiritual senses are coming online, just as they were designed to do as you evolve toward higher consciousness. Think of it this way. Imagine you've been living your entire life in a soundproofed room, aware only of the few sounds you could create inside that space. Suddenly, the soundproofing begins to thin, and you start hearing faint sounds from outside. Voices, music, natural sounds you never knew existed. This is what's happening when spiritual hearing awakens. The barrier between physical and spiritual perception is becoming permeable, allowing you to detect divine communications that were always present but previously unperceivable. The timing of these experiences is profoundly significant. Spiritual sounds don't appear randomly. They emerge when your consciousness reaches specific stages of development or when divine beings need to communicate important guidance. Many people first notice unexplained ear ringing during periods of intense spiritual seeking, after beginning serious meditation practice, or during life transitions that require divine guidance. I remember my own first experience with spiritual sounds occurred during a period of deep spiritual crisis early in my seeking. I had been praying intensely for divine guidance about my life direction, feeling lost and disconnected from any clear sense of purpose. One evening, while sitting in meditation, a clear, high-pitched tone suddenly filled my consciousness, not heard through my physical ears, but perceived through some deeper faculty of awareness. Initially, I was concerned, wondering if something was wrong with my hearing, but as I remained in meditative silence, paying attention to this sound, rather than trying to dismiss it, I began to sense a profound peace and love surrounding the experience. It was as if a door had opened in my consciousness, allowing divine presence to communicate directly with my soul through vibration rather than words. Over time, I learned that this sacred sound was what the ancient yogis called the unstruck sound, or anahat nad, the primordial vibration from which all creation emerges and through which God communicates with awakened consciousness. This wasn't just ear ringing, it was my first conscious experience of divine communion through spiritual hearing. The spiritual mechanics behind these experiences involve what I call frequency attunement. Everything in creation vibrates at specific frequencies, from the densest matter to the most refined spiritual energy. As your consciousness evolves, your personal vibration rises to match higher spiritual frequencies. When your vibration approaches these elevated levels, you begin to perceive the sounds associated with divine realms. This is why spiritual ear ringing often increases during meditation, prayer, or moments of devotional communion. These practices raise your consciousness to frequencies where spiritual sounds become perceptible. It's also why these experiences often occur during emotional or spiritual breakthroughs, moments when your vibration shifts dramatically toward higher spiritual dimensions. Different types of spiritual sounds indicate different levels of frequency attunement. High, clear tones usually indicate connection with refined spiritual realms and beings of light. Lower, more complex sounds might indicate attunement to earth energies or communication with spiritual guides who work closer to the physical dimension. Pulsing or rhythmic sounds often indicate alignment with cosmic rhythms and universal consciousness. But here's what's crucial to understand. These sounds aren't just experiences to notice passively. They're invitations to deeper communion with divine consciousness. When spiritual sounds appear, you're being offered an opportunity to expand your awareness, receive guidance, or deepen your connection with spiritual beings who are trying to support your evolution. The reason many people find these experiences disturbing or concerning is that modern culture has lost understanding of spiritual phenomena. We've been conditioned to interpret everything through purely physical or psychological frameworks. So when spiritual experiences occur, we try to explain them as medical problems or psychological disturbances, rather than recognizing them as the sacred communications they actually are. Ancient spiritual traditions, however, understood these experiences as signs of spiritual awakening and divine blessing. In the yogic tradition, the appearance of inner sounds was considered evidence that the spiritual centers were activating and that the soul was beginning to perceive its true divine nature. The key to working with spiritual ear-ringing constructively is shifting your response from concern to curiosity, from resistance to receptivity. Instead of trying to make the sounds stop or worrying about what might be wrong, approach them as sacred communications that deserve your attention and respect. When spiritual sounds appear, pause whatever you're doing and turn your awareness inward. Ask silently, "What are you trying to tell me? What guidance or blessing are you offering?" Then listen with your whole being, not just your ears, but your heart, your intuition, your soul's knowing capacity. Often, the guidance doesn't come as words or specific messages, but as shifts in consciousness, feelings of peace or clarity, or sudden insights about situations you've been struggling with. The sounds themselves are vehicles for transmitting divine energy and wisdom directly to your consciousness, bypassing the limitations of mental analysis. Understanding the spiritual science behind these experiences also helps you distinguish between genuine spiritual phenomena and physical conditions that might require medical attention. Spiritual sounds typically occur without any physical discomfort, often during or after spiritual practices, and are usually accompanied by feelings of peace, love, or spiritual presence. Medical conditions, by contrast, often involve pain, dizziness, or other physical symptoms, occur randomly without spiritual context, and may worsen over time. If you experience concerning physical symptoms along with ear ringing, certainly consult medical professionals. But don't let medical framework prevent you from also recognizing the spiritual dimensions of these experiences when they occur in spiritual contexts. The most important thing to remember is that awakening spiritual hearing is a gift to be grateful for rather than a problem to solve. These experiences indicate that your consciousness is expanding beyond ordinary limitations and that you're developing the spiritual senses you'll need for deeper communion with divine consciousness. Now that you understand the spiritual mechanics behind these divine sounds, let me help you learn to distinguish between different types of spiritual communications and what each category means for your spiritual development and daily guidance. The most common type of spiritual ear ringing is what I call angelic frequencies, high, clear, pure tones that seem to come from elevated spiritual dimensions. These sounds typically indicate that spiritual guides, guardian angels, or other beings of light are trying to establish communication with you or are surrounding you with protective energy. Angelic frequencies usually feel peaceful, loving, and uplifting. They often appear during prayer, meditation, or moments when you're seeking divine guidance about important decisions. Sometimes these sounds occur just before significant positive changes in your life, as if divine beings are preparing you for blessings that are approaching. I remember counseling a student who began experiencing clear, bell-like tones during her morning prayers. Initially concerned, she was ready to seek medical consultation until she noticed that these sounds only occurred during spiritual practice and were always followed by feelings of profound peace and clarity about challenges she was facing. As she learned to welcome these sounds rather than worry about them, she discovered that they often preceded important insights or opportunities that perfectly addressed her prayers. She began to understand that her guardian angels were using these frequencies to get her attention before delivering guidance or blessings. The key to recognizing angelic frequencies is their quality of love and peace. These sounds don't create anxiety or discomfort. Instead, they feel like gentle calls to attention from loving spiritual beings who want to share divine guidance with you. The second category is what I call earth resonance sounds, lower, more complex tones that indicate connection with the spiritual intelligence that guides natural processes and planetary consciousness. These sounds often have a deeper, more rhythmic quality and may fluctuate in intensity or pitch. Earth resonance sounds frequently appear during periods of significant planetary energy shifts, seasonal transitions, or when you're called to work with healing the earth or serving natural harmony. Some sensitive individuals experience these sounds before earthquakes, storms, or other natural events, as their consciousness picks up early vibrations from Earth's energy field. These sounds can also indicate that you're being called to ground your spiritual awareness more deeply in practical service, to connect with nature as a source of divine guidance, or to use your spiritual gifts for healing environmental or social problems. A student of mine began experiencing deep, pulsing sounds during meditation, especially when she prayed for guidance about her life purpose. Through inner communion, she discovered that these were earth resonance frequencies calling her to environmental service. She eventually became a powerful advocate for sustainable living and found deep fulfillment in her work healing the relationship between humanity and nature. The third category is cosmic consciousness frequencies, sounds that seem to pulse or vibrate in rhythm with some vast universal heartbeat. These experiences often feel like connecting with the fundamental rhythm that underlies all creation, the divine pulse that keeps galaxies spinning and hearts beating. Cosmic consciousness frequencies indicate that your awareness is expanding to perceive the unified field of divine intelligence that connects all existence. These experiences often accompany states of deep meditation where individual identity temporarily dissolves into universal consciousness. When you hear cosmic frequencies, you're being invited to expand your sense of self beyond individual limitation into recognition of your connection with all life. These sounds often bring profound feelings of unity, compassion, and understanding of life's deeper purpose. The fourth category is warning frequencies, sounds that feel urgent, sharp, or demanding attention. These are divine alerts about situations that require your awareness, protection, or intervention. Warning frequencies might appear when you're about to make decisions that aren't aligned with your highest good, when negative energies are present that you need to clear, or when loved ones need your prayers or assistance. These sounds feel different from other spiritual communications because they carry a sense of urgency or importance. They're not peaceful background experiences, but active calls to spiritual action or awareness. I once experienced intense, sharp ringing while considering a business partnership that seemed profitable but felt uncertain. The warning frequency was so persistent that I decided to postpone the decision and seek deeper guidance through meditation. Within days, information came to light that revealed the partnership would have been financially and spiritually destructive. The fifth category is activation frequencies, sounds that indicate new spiritual abilities are awakening or existing gifts are expanding. These often have a complex, layered quality and may be accompanied by sensations of energy moving through your body or shifts in your perception of reality. Activation frequencies announce that your consciousness is ready for new levels of spiritual development. They often precede the emergence of intuitive abilities, healing gifts, or deeper meditation experiences. When you hear activation sounds, prepare for spiritual expansion and be open to new ways of serving divine purposes. The timing and context of spiritual sounds provide important clues about their meaning. Sounds that occur during prayer or meditation usually indicate response to your spiritual communication. Sounds that appear during decision-making often carry guidance about your choices. Sounds that emerge during times of difficulty frequently bring comfort, protection, or redirection from spiritual sources. Pay attention not just to the sounds themselves, but to what you were thinking, feeling, or doing when they appeared. This context helps you understand what divine communication is being offered and how to respond appropriately. Learning to distinguish between these different types of spiritual sounds takes practice and patience. Begin by simply noticing when unexplained ear ringing occurs, what type of sound it is, and what's happening in your life at that moment. Over time, patterns will emerge that help you recognize which types of divine communication you're receiving. Remember, the goal isn't to become expert at categorizing these experiences, but to develop trust in your spiritual senses and openness to divine guidance. Each sound is a gift from the spiritual realm designed to support your highest good and spiritual evolution. Now that you can recognize different types of divine communications, let me teach you the specific practices that will enhance your spiritual hearing and help you receive clearer guidance through these sacred sounds. The foundation of developing spiritual hearing is creating what I call receptive silence in your consciousness. Most people's minds are so busy with constant mental activity that even when spiritual communications occur, they're drowned out by the noise of worry, planning, and random thoughts. Receptive silence isn't just the absence of external noise. It's the presence of inner stillness that allows subtle spiritual communications to be clearly perceived. This quality of consciousness requires practice to develop, but once established, it becomes a natural state that makes you constantly available to divine guidance. Begin each day with what I call listening meditation. Sit quietly in your usual meditation posture, close your eyes, and instead of focusing on breathing or mantras, simply listen. Listen to the sounds around you, birds, traffic, household noises, without analyzing or judging them. Then gradually turn your attention inward and listen to the sounds within your body, your heartbeat, breathing, the subtle energy movements you can detect. Finally, listen deeper still, beyond physical and mental sounds, to the silence from which all sounds emerge. Rest your attention in this deep silence and simply remain open to whatever wants to arise. Don't try to create spiritual experiences or force divine sounds to appear. Simply maintain receptive awareness and trust that if spiritual communications are meant to come, they will emerge naturally in this state of openness. Practice this listening meditation for at least 15 minutes daily. Over time, you'll notice that your capacity to perceive subtle sounds, both physical and spiritual, dramatically increases. You'll also find that spiritual communications occur more frequently as your consciousness becomes habitually receptive. The second essential practice is prayer for spiritual hearing, specifically requesting divine assistance in developing your spiritual senses. Many people assume that psychic abilities develop automatically through spiritual practice, but conscious request for these gifts greatly accelerates their emergence. Each morning, pray something like, "Divine Mother, please awaken my spiritual hearing so that I may receive your guidance clearly. Help me distinguish between my own thoughts and your divine communications. Give me the wisdom to respond appropriately to spiritual guidance and the courage to follow where your love leads." This prayer establishes conscious cooperation with divine will in developing your spiritual senses. It also creates protection by ensuring that your psychic development occurs under divine guidance rather than through ego, ambition, or curiosity alone. The third practice is sound integration meditation, a specific technique for working with spiritual ear ringing when it occurs. Instead of ignoring these sounds or wishing them away, use them as focal points for deeper spiritual communion. When unexplained ear ringing appears, immediately stop whatever you're doing and turn your full attention to the sound. Don't try to analyze what type of communication it might be or what message it contains. Simply focus on the sound itself as completely as possible, allowing it to fill your entire awareness. As you focus on the spiritual sound, breathe slowly and deeply, maintaining complete receptivity. Often, as you give the sound your undivided attention, it will intensify, clarify, or shift into even more refined frequencies. This intensification indicates that spiritual communion is deepening. While maintaining focus on the sound, ask silently, "What blessing or guidance are you bringing me?" Then continue listening with your whole being, your ears, your heart, your intuitive knowing. The response might come as words, images, feelings, sudden insights, or simply as deep peace and clarity about your life circumstances. Don't be concerned if you don't receive dramatic messages or obvious guidance. Often, the most profound spiritual communications happen at levels deeper than conscious thought, creating gradual shifts in your awareness, priorities, and spiritual alignment that unfold over days or weeks following the experience. The fourth practice is gratitude for spiritual gifts, acknowledging and appreciating your developing spiritual hearing abilities. Many people unconsciously resist psychic development because they fear it will make them different or strange. This resistance actually blocks the very gifts they're asking to receive. Each time you experience spiritual sounds, whether or not you understand their specific meaning, consciously express gratitude for this evidence of your expanding spiritual awareness. Say something like, "Thank you, Divine Spirit, for awakening my spiritual hearing. Thank you for trusting me with these sacred communications. Help me use these gifts wisely in service of love." This gratitude creates a positive feedback loop that encourages further spiritual development while ensuring that your psychic abilities develop in harmony with divine will rather than ego desires. The fifth practice is protective prayer, ensuring that your opening spiritual senses remain aligned with divine light rather than becoming vulnerable to lower spiritual influences. As your psychic abilities awaken, you become more sensitive not just to divine communications but to all spiritual energies, including some that may not serve your highest good. Before any spiritual practice, or when you notice spiritual sounds appearing, pray for divine protection. I surround myself with the light of God's love. I open my spiritual hearing only to divine guidance and communications that serve my highest good and the highest good of all beings. I close my awareness to any influences that are not aligned with divine love and light. This prayer creates a protective spiritual atmosphere that ensures your developing gifts serve your spiritual evolution rather than creating confusion or fear. The final practice is integration through service, using whatever spiritual guidance you receive to serve others and express divine love in practical ways. Spiritual gifts aren't given for personal advantage or ego satisfaction, but to increase your capacity to be an instrument of divine blessing in the world. When you receive guidance through spiritual hearing, look for ways to use that wisdom in service to others. Share insights that might help fellow seekers. Use intuitive guidance to offer comfort or assistance to those in need, or allow divine communications to inspire acts of kindness and compassion. This service orientation ensures that your spiritual abilities develop in harmony with divine purposes and actually increases the clarity and frequency of spiritual communications, as divine intelligence recognizes you as a trustworthy channel for blessing others. As you practice these techniques consistently, you'll notice that your spiritual hearing becomes more refined, reliable, and integrated into your daily spiritual life. What began as occasional mysterious ear-ringing transforms into a constant, subtle awareness of divine presence and guidance that supports every aspect of your spiritual journey. The key is patience and consistency rather than dramatic expectations. Some people develop clear spiritual hearing quickly, while others experience gradual awakening over months or years. Trust divine timing while maintaining faithful practice, and your spiritual senses will unfold according to the pace that serves your highest evolution. Once your spiritual hearing begins to develop reliably, the next step is learning how to integrate these divine communications into your daily life as practical guidance for decisions, relationships, and spiritual service. The most important principle for living with spiritual hearing is what I call respectful response, treating every spiritual communication as a sacred gift that deserves your careful attention and appropriate action. Many people make the mistake of becoming casual about spiritual experiences, taking them for granted or ignoring guidance when it doesn't align with their personal preferences. When spiritual sounds appear, especially those that carry guidance about specific situations, respond with the same reverence you would show to advice from the wisest, most loving friend you can imagine. Consider the guidance seriously, pray for understanding if the message isn't clear, and be willing to act on divine direction even when it challenges your comfortable plans. I remember a student who began receiving clear spiritual guidance about ending an unhealthy relationship, communicated through persistent warning frequencies whenever she was with this person. Initially, she acknowledged the guidance but hesitated to act because ending the relationship seemed difficult and painful. The spiritual warnings became increasingly intense until she finally recognized that divine love was trying to protect her from a situation that was harming her spiritual development. When she finally followed the guidance and ended the relationship, she immediately felt profound relief and soon attracted a partnership that supported her highest growth. The second principle is integrated discernment, learning to combine spiritual guidance with practical wisdom and common sense. Authentic divine guidance never contradicts fundamental spiritual principles like love, compassion, honesty, and service to others. It also rarely demands dramatic actions without providing time for prayer, reflection, and gradual preparation. When you receive spiritual guidance, test it against these criteria. Does this guidance align with divine love? Will following it serve not just my own growth, but the good of others involved? Does it feel peacefully certain rather than anxious or ego-driven? Am I being guided toward greater love and service, or toward self-interest and separation? If guidance passes these tests and continues to feel clear through prayer and reflection, trust it even if it doesn't make perfect logical sense. Divine intelligence often guides us toward opportunities and experiences that our limited understanding couldn't have planned or imagined. The third principle is continuous availability, maintaining inner receptivity to spiritual communications throughout your daily activities rather than only during formal spiritual practices. Divine guidance often comes precisely when you need it most, which may be in the middle of challenging conversations, decision-making moments, or unexpected crises. Cultivate what I call background awareness, a subtle part of your consciousness that remains open to spiritual input while your surface attention handles daily responsibilities. This is like having spiritual hearing always quietly switched on, so that divine communications can reach you whenever they're needed. Practice shifting into receptive listening during transition moments throughout your day. While walking between activities, waiting for appointments, or taking brief breaks from work, these micro-meditations keep your spiritual channels clear and available for divine guidance. The fourth principle is grateful sharing, using the wisdom and blessings you receive through spiritual hearing to benefit others rather than hoarding spiritual experiences for personal satisfaction. When divine guidance helps you solve problems, make good decisions, or find peace in difficult situations, look for opportunities to share these blessings appropriately with others who might benefit. This might mean offering encouragement to someone facing similar challenges you've received guidance about, sharing insights that could help fellow spiritual seekers, or simply radiating the peace and confidence that comes from knowing you're divinely guided. Sharing spiritual blessings creates a circulation of divine grace that increases the flow of guidance in your own life, while contributing to the spiritual upliftment of your community. The fifth principle is humble recognition, understanding that developing spiritual hearing doesn't make you spiritually superior or specially chosen, but rather more responsible for living according to divine love. Psychic abilities are tools for service, not sources of spiritual pride or personal advantage. Maintain humility about your spiritual gifts by remembering that they come from divine grace rather than personal achievement. Use them to serve others' highest good rather than to gain attention, control situations, or prove your spiritual advancement. The deeper your spiritual hearing develops, the more you'll recognize that these gifts come with increased responsibility to embody divine love in all your relationships and activities. The final principle is protective boundaries, maintaining spiritual discernment about when and with whom to share your spiritual experiences. Not everyone will understand or respect spiritual communications, and sharing sacred experiences with people who might ridicule or misuse them can actually diminish your spiritual sensitivity. Be selective about discussing spiritual hearing experiences, sharing them primarily with others who have similar sensitivity or genuine interest in spiritual development. This protects both your gifts and your relationships from unnecessary conflict or misunderstanding. When people ask about your spiritual practices or unusual experiences, share what feels appropriate while maintaining privacy about the most sacred aspects of your divine communications. Living with reliable spiritual hearing gradually transforms your entire approach to life. Instead of feeling alone with your problems or uncertain about important decisions, you develop confidence in the divine guidance that's always available to support your highest good. This doesn't mean life becomes easy or free from challenges, but it does mean you face difficulties with the peace and strength that come from knowing you're never without divine support and guidance. As your trust in spiritual communications deepens, you'll find yourself making decisions with greater clarity, maintaining peace during difficult circumstances, and discovering opportunities for service and growth that you could never have found through mental planning alone. The ultimate goal isn't just to receive divine guidance for your personal benefit, but to become so aligned with divine will that your entire life becomes an expression of spiritual service. Your developed spiritual hearing becomes one of the tools through which divine love works in the world to heal, bless, and awaken other souls to their own divine potential. My beloved friend, what we've discovered today reveals that those mysterious, ear-ringing experiences are actually precious gifts from the spiritual realm. You now understand that these sounds indicate your expanding spiritual awareness and provide direct access to divine guidance that's always available to support your journey. You've learned to distinguish between ordinary physical symptoms and genuine spiritual phenomena, discovered how to interpret different types of divine sounds, and received practical techniques for developing clearer spiritual hearing. Remember, these experiences aren't signs of problems or symptoms to eliminate. They're evidence of your awakening spiritual gifts and proof that you're never alone on your spiritual journey. Each time you hear unexplained ringing, you're receiving confirmation that divine beings are aware of your needs and actively working to provide guidance, protection, and blessing. The spiritual practices I've shared will help you develop these gifts more fully, but the most important element is simply maintaining an attitude of openness, gratitude, and respect for the sacred communications you're receiving. Your spiritual hearing is evidence that your consciousness is evolving beyond ordinary limitations, and that you're developing the expanded awareness you'll need for deeper service to divine purposes in the world. So the next time you hear unexplained ringing in your ears, don't dismiss it or worry about medical causes. Pause, breathe deeply, and ask, what divine message are you bringing me? What guidance or protection is being offered? Then listen with your heart as well as your ears. Trust that divine intelligence is constantly communicating with you in ways that serve your highest evolution and greatest capacity for love. These sounds are invitations to deeper communion with the spiritual realm that surrounds and supports you every moment of your existence. I'm deeply curious about your own experiences with this phenomenon. When do you most commonly experience unexplained ear ringing? Have you ever noticed these sounds occurring during prayer, meditation, or at significant moments in your life? Share your experiences in the comments below. Your story might help someone else recognize the spiritual significance of their own divine sound experiences. And here's a question for deeper reflection. If you could receive one clear message from your spiritual guides through these sacred sounds, what guidance would you most want to receive about your spiritual path or life purpose? Sometimes setting this intention consciously opens the channels for clearer divine communication. Another question to consider: have you noticed patterns in when these spiritual sounds occur? Do they appear more frequently during certain activities, emotional states, or life circumstances? Understanding these patterns can help you recognize what triggers clearer divine communication in your experience. If this teaching has helped you understand the spiritual significance of these mysterious sounds, I invite you to subscribe to our channel and consider joining our YouTube membership community. Your support allows us to continue sharing these profound spiritual insights that help souls recognize their divine gifts and connections. For those hungry for deeper spiritual wisdom, join our free email community where I share additional guidance about developing psychic abilities, communicating with spiritual beings, and recognizing divine signs in your daily life. You'll find the link in the description below. Remember, when you awaken to the spiritual communications that surround you, you inspire others to recognize their own divine connections. Your growing spiritual awareness creates ripples of awakening that help other souls discover their sacred gifts. Every time you honor a spiritual sound as divine communication rather than dismissing it as meaningless noise, you strengthen the bridge between physical and spiritual dimensions, not just for yourself, but for all consciousness. Your respectful response to divine guidance makes it easier for others to recognize and trust their own spiritual experiences. Your developing spiritual hearing is part of a larger awakening happening throughout humanity as more souls become ready to receive direct divine guidance. By cultivating these gifts with love and wisdom, you're contributing to the spiritual evolution of our entire world. The sounds you hear are not just personal communications, they're part of the divine symphony that connects all awakened consciousness. As your spiritual hearing develops, you become not just a receiver of divine guidance, but a contributor to the cosmic harmony that guides all souls toward their ultimate recognition of divine love. Until we commune again in the divine sounds that connect all consciousness, may you hear the voice of God in every sacred vibration, and may your spiritual hearing guide you always toward your highest truth and deepest joy. May every mysterious sound remind you of your eternal connection to divine intelligence, and may your growing sensitivity to spiritual communications become a blessing that serves not only your own awakening, but the awakening of every soul whose life you touch with divine love. Beloved, there are moments in life when the ordinary fabric of the day is suddenly pierced by something unexpected and exquisite. You may be walking alone in the still air of an afternoon, or sitting quietly in a room without flowers, incense, or perfume, when suddenly, softly, unmistakably, the fragrance of blossoms fills your senses. It may be roses, jasmine, lilies, or a scent you cannot quite name, Yet it carries with it a sweetness that seems not of this earth. For a moment, the world pauses. The noise of your thoughts recedes, and you are simply present, breathing in a beauty that arrived without warning, without cause. This is the threshold of a mystery, and it comes not to startle you, but to awaken you. In that instant, your mind may begin to search for explanations. Perhaps someone passed by wearing perfume. Perhaps the wind carried it from a distant garden. But another part of you, quieter, deeper, knows that no such explanation is necessary. It senses that the fragrance is not bound to the mechanics of the physical world, that it is a gift carried on a subtler current, meant for you in that very moment. It feels like a caress from the unseen, a whisper from a presence that knows your heart more intimately than you know it yourself. The saints and sages have spoken of such moments as glimpses into the invisible worlds that surround and interpenetrate our own. Yogananda taught that the senses of the astral body, your finer, spiritual senses, are not limited by material causes. When the consciousness rises to a certain purity, when the heart is tuned to the divine vibration, those senses awaken, and you may experience sights, sounds, or fragrances that have no origin in the physical realm. They come as confirmations. Yes, child, there is more than you see. Yes, beloved, I am here. It is important to understand that such an occurrence is not an accident, nor is it merely an oddity to be brushed aside. It is a meeting point between two realities, the outer world of form and the inner world of spirit. In that meeting, something within you is being called to remembrance. Just as the sudden scent of a flower in spring can bring back a flood of forgotten memories, so too can a divine fragrance reawaken the soul's memory of its origin in God. Let your heart be open in such moments. Do not rush past them, nor dismiss them as trifles. Stand still inwardly, breathe with reverence, and acknowledge that you have just been touched by a grace that defies explanation. This is the identity shock, the realization that you live in a universe that speaks to you not only through words and events, but through the delicate, intimate language of fragrance. And yet, as soon as such a blessing is received, another voice often arises within, the voice of doubt. Before we can journey deeper into the meaning of this gift, we must face that voice and see it for what it is. Beloved, the moment the mind encounters something it cannot explain, the ego often rushes forward with its arsenal of dismissals. It tells you that what you experienced was surely a trick of your senses, a stray draft of scented air, a phantom memory from the mind's storehouse, or a mere coincidence with no more weight than a passing cloud. The ego fears mystery because it cannot control it. It resists surrendering to anything that calls it into the unknown. When you smell a sudden fragrance without a source, the ego prefers to shut the door quickly, for to linger and wonder would mean admitting there are realms beyond its dominion. This is the same impulse that would have you throw away a sealed letter simply because you were not expecting it. Imagine finding such an envelope on your doorstep, bearing your name in a handwriting you do not recognize. If the ego ruled you completely, you might toss it aside, telling yourself it was misdelivered or irrelevant. But the soul, the deeper self, knows better. It knows that certain messages arrive only once, and that to ignore them is to miss the hand of the divine reaching into your day. It is here we must learn the delicate balance between healthy discernment and cynical disbelief. Discernment asks, is this true? Does it uplift? Does it bring peace? And if the answer is yes, it allows the heart to receive. Cynicism, on the other hand, asks these same questions, but assumes the answer is no before the asking is done. One is a gateway, the other, a locked door. And too often we choose the locked door simply because the key is unfamiliar. The tragedy of the ego's dismissal is not merely that it closes you to one moment of beauty, it is that it conditions you to miss many such moments. When you train yourself to explain away every brush of grace, every ripple in the fabric of the ordinary, you slowly blind yourself to the countless ways God is speaking. The fragrance fades, and with it the opportunity to feel the nearness of the beloved in a tangible, living way. So, beloved, the next time a scent arises out of nowhere and your mind leaps to dismiss it, pause. Notice the reflex of the ego to label it as nothing. Then gently set that reflex aside, as you would set aside a curtain that blocks your view of a sunrise. Allow yourself to entertain the possibility, just the possibility, that you have been visited. Allow wonder to be the lens through which you look. For once the doubt loosens its grip, the fragrance can at last deliver its true message, and the veil between the seen and unseen begins to lift. It is in that unveiling that the deeper revelation awaits. Beloved, when the veil begins to lift, and you allow yourself to stand without the armor of disbelief, the fragrance takes on a new dimension. It is no longer just a scent, it becomes a presence, a living messenger. In the sacred traditions of yoga, this is known as Divya Gandha, the divine fragrance, a sign that the currents of your soul are harmonizing with the higher vibrations of spirit. Yogananda often spoke of such moments as the touch of the infinite made perceptible to human senses, the perfume of the soul when it draws close to God. This subtle aroma does not come from the decay of matter, as earthly scents do, but from the blossoming of higher consciousness within you. Imagine, if you will, a flower blooming in complete darkness. No eye sees its petals, no hand touches its stem, yet its perfume fills the air, revealing its existence to anyone with the sensitivity to inhale. In the same way, divine fragrance announces the nearness of something unseen, perhaps the presence of a saintly soul, a guiding angel, or the stirring of your own purified energy within the astral body. The body of light that surrounds your physical form carries within it channels for perception far beyond the five senses. And when the prana, the life force, flows freely and purely through these channels, such signs often appear. In that instant, you are not merely smelling air, you are breathing in a vibration, a signature of holiness that the soul recognizes. It brings a calm that has no source in circumstance, a sweetness that seems to touch the heart directly. You may notice that your thoughts quiet, your posture softens, and your breath deepens, as though the body itself knows to receive this blessing with reverence. The experience becomes a wordless conversation between you and the divine. "I am here," says the fragrance. "I know," answers your soul. And here lies a truth that must be cherished. Such a sign is not meant to impress you or to make you cling to the experience for its own sake. It is meant to draw you inward, to lead you beyond the scent into the presence from which it flows. The flower's perfume is only the first invitation. The garden lies further in. When you encounter it, resist the urge to analyze or to grasp, simply be with it, as you would sit beside a dear friend without the need for words. This intimacy with the unseen is a sacred trust. The more you honor it, the more often you will find the divine slipping fragrance into your days, not as a reward, but as a reminder of your eternal belonging. And so, knowing what this perfume truly means, the question arises, how shall you respond when it comes? The answer lies in learning to align yourself with the moment, so that you do not merely experience the blessing, you enter into it fully. Beloved, when the fragrance comes, it is as if heaven has leaned close to breathe upon you, and the most fitting response is to make yourself entirely present to that breath. The first movement is to pause not only in body, but in thought. Let the rush of your mind come to stillness, like a pond whose ripples are calming so it can reflect the moon. You may be in the middle of a task, a conversation, or even a worry. Let all of that be suspended for a moment. The fragrance is a guest of great dignity. It must be met with the full attention and courtesy of your soul. Once you have paused, offer silent gratitude. Do not wait for your mind to fully understand what has happened before giving thanks. Gratitude opens the heart to receive the fuller blessing. A simple inward whisper, "Thank you, beloved, for touching me in this way," is enough. Such gratitude is not a formality. It is the aligning of your vibration with the one who sent this sign. In that alignment, you become more receptive, more able to catch the deeper meaning woven into the fragrance. Then ask quietly within, what truth or blessing are you showing me now? Do not strain for an answer. Let the question be like a seed dropped into still water, and allow the ripples of intuition to arise in their own time. Sometimes the meaning will be immediate. You may suddenly feel a reassurance about a choice or a lifting of a burden you had been carrying. At other times, the meaning will reveal itself hours or even days later, in a moment when you least expect it. The important thing is not to force revelation, but to create the conditions in which it can come. This is what it means to live by the law of alignment. You meet the sign with presence, gratitude, and openness, and in doing so, you attune yourself to the frequency of the divine sender. It is much like spotting a rare bird in the forest. You do not chase after it noisily, for that would send it away. You stand still, allowing it to remain in your sight, breathing in the wonder of its colors and song. In the same way, when a divine fragrance comes, still yourself so that the presence may linger, so that your soul can drink deeply of its sweetness before it fades from the senses. When you respond in this way, the fragrance does not pass through your life as a brief curiosity. It becomes a gateway to greater intimacy with God. And as you grow in this habit of alignment, you will find that such moments multiply, not always in the form of scent, but in other subtle ways. A sudden warmth in the heart, a shimmering in the air, a peace that descends without reason. These are all blossoms from the same garden, each carrying its own perfume of grace. And to understand the fullness of their meaning, we must now explore the deeper symbolism that flowers and their fragrance hold in the spiritual life. Beloved, the language of flowers is as old as creation itself, and their fragrance is one of the most tender dialects through which God speaks to the soul. In every spiritual tradition, flowers have been revered as symbols of purity, beauty, and the blossoming of the inner life. Just as a flower opens petal by petal to the light, so too does the soul unfold in stages under the warmth of divine love. The yogis have long compared the spiritual centers of the body, the chakrasto lotuses that awaken and bloom as the consciousness ascends. When a divine fragrance comes to you, it may be as if one of these inner lotuses has opened a little wider, releasing the perfume of virtue and devotion that has been forming unseen within. Flowers also teach us about silent influence. A blossom does not call out to advertise its beauty, nor does it seek reward for the sweetness it gives. Its fragrance drifts freely, touching all who come near, whether they are aware of it or not. In the same way, the virtues that God cultivates in you, kindness, patience, humility, spread silently into the world, often unnoticed yet deeply felt by those whose lives you touch. To smell a sudden, sourceless fragrance is to be reminded of this truth, that unseen goodness is often the most powerful of all. And consider, beloved, how a flower's fragrance is inseparable from its essence. The scent cannot be separated from the flower without losing its life. It is the very breath of the bloom. So too is the fragrance of the soul, inseparable from its divine nature. When you sense a floral aroma in the absence of physical flowers, it may be that your spirit is catching the breath of another soul's blossoming, perhaps a saint in the subtle realms, perhaps your own higher self greeting you from the garden of God. There is also a deeper note in this symbolism, fragrance as the evidence of life beyond the scene. You cannot see the scent, yet you cannot deny its reality. It proves itself through its effect. This is why Yogananda would say that God's presence is like a fragrance. You may not see him with your eyes, but when he passes by, the air is changed, your heart is stirred, your very breath becomes sweeter. When such symbolism is understood, the gift of divine fragrance becomes more than a passing wonder, it becomes a teaching. It invites you to blossom inwardly, to radiate the virtues that perfume the atmosphere of your life, and to recognize that your unseen essence is your truest gift to the world. But as with all beautiful experiences on the path, there is a danger here as well. The danger of becoming attached to the sign itself, of chasing the aroma instead of seeking the gardener from whom it comes. Let us now turn to this subtle pitfall, so that we may avoid it and keep our hearts fixed on the source. Beloved, every divine gift carries within it both a blessing and a test, and the test of a spiritual sign is whether you will seek its giver rather than the gift itself. When the air has once bloomed around you with fragrance from an unseen garden, the heart may begin to yearn for it to happen again, and this yearning, if it becomes restless, can lead the seeker astray. The ego, subtle in its disguises, may take what was meant as a gentle reminder of God's nearness and turn it into an object of pursuit, as though the fragrance itself were the treasure. But no matter how beautiful the aroma, it is not the flower. No matter how sweet the sign, it is not the beloved. This is the essence of the pitfall, chasing the sensory sign rather than allowing it to draw you deeper into the silence where God dwells. Signs, like the petals of a blossom, are delicate. They are meant to fall away once they have served their purpose. If you try to hold them, they fade in your hand. Think of a traveler who follows the scent of a single rose and, in doing so, wanders away from the vast, radiant garden that lies just beyond the next hill. To fixate on the sign is to miss the garden. To follow it inward to its source is to arrive at the gardener himself. Yogananda warned that an overemphasis on phenomenal, whether visions, sounds, or fragrances, can distract from the true goal of God union. These gifts come to encourage, to reassure, to open the heart, but they are not the measure of spiritual attainment. A soul could live a life rich with such signs and yet remain far from realization if it clings to them as proof or as spiritual currency. The real transformation lies not in the repetition of the sign, but in the change it inspires within you, the deepening of devotion, the strengthening of faith, the expansion of love. If the fragrance comes, welcome it with joy, then let it pass without regret. If it does not come again for months or years, do not think you have lost God's favor. Perhaps He is calling you to walk by faith rather than by perfume. The scent is a reminder, not a requirement. It is given in freedom and must be received in freedom. To demand its return is to close the hand that should remain open. Beloved, let the fragrance lead you inward, not outward. Let it be a bridge from the outer sense to the inner silence, from the delight of the nose to the stillness of the soul. If you cross the bridge and stand in that stillness, you will find that the true fragrance is not something that comes and goes. It is the constant sweetness of God's presence, always available, whether or not the physical senses are aware of it. And to live in such awareness, we must learn the practices that refine our inner receptivity so that the subtler sense of spirit are recognized and cherished. Let us turn to those sacred disciplines now. Beloved, the ability to perceive the subtle fragrances of the divine is not a random accident of fate, is the flowering of inner attunement, and like any garden, it must be cultivated with care. Just as a gardener clears the soil, tends the roots, and waters the ground to coax blossoms into life, so too must you refine the inner conditions of your heart and mind to awaken the senses of the soul. These practices are not about forcing an experience. They are about preparing a vessel so pure and still that when grace chooses to pour, it has a place to rest. Begin with daily meditation, the most potent of all tools for sharpening your inner senses. When you withdraw your attention from the outer world and center it at the spiritual eye, the point between the eyebrows, you align yourself with the very channel through which divine impressions enter. In deep meditation, the turbulence of thought subsides, and like a lake becoming glassy, the surface of your consciousness reflects the subtlest stirrings of spirit. It is in this receptive state that you may first notice an unearthly fragrance, a sweetness that seems to rise not from the air, but from within the very breath of your soul. To deepen this receptivity, incorporate conscious breath control into your day. Each slow, mindful inhalation draws life force into the inner temple. Each unhurried exhalation releases the tensions and distractions that cloud perception. Think of it as polishing a mirror. With every breath, you wipe away the dust of restlessness until the mirror is so clear it reflects even the faintest light, even the gentlest vibration. The fragrances of spirit are delicate. They require a quiet mind and a heart tuned to the higher harmonics of love. Prayer, too, is essential, not the hurried or mechanical recitation of words, but the living prayer of the heart. When you speak to God with sincerity, not asking for signs but offering your love, the currents of your devotion rise upward like invisible incense. In such moments, you may suddenly sense that the fragrance is not coming to you from the outside at all, but that it is being breathed into you by the very presence you are addressing. Prayer not only opens the channel, it sweetens it, infusing it with a vibration that the soul longs to dwell in. And finally, carry your attunement into the simple acts of your day. Move more slowly, listen more deeply, watch more attentively. The divine often hides His messages in the most ordinary moments, waiting for a soul still enough to notice them. In every breath, every task, every interaction, be present as though you are walking through a garden whose flowers are just beginning to open. If you cultivate such a way of being, you will find that the fragrances of spirit begin to meet you not just in rare and isolated moments, but as a subtle, constant sweetness permeating your life. When this receptivity becomes part of who you are, something remarkable begins to happen. You find that you are no longer merely the recipient of divine fragrance, you have begun to carry it within you, radiating it outward into the lives of others. This is the identity shift of the soul, when you become the flower instead of only its beholder. Let us step now into that transformation. Beloved, there comes a sacred turning point on the path When you realize that the fragrances of spirit are no longer just blessings that visit you from beyond, they are emanations arising from the garden of your own soul. In the early stages, you are like a traveler who happens upon a blossom in the wilderness, pausing in wonder to breathe in its perfume. But as you deepen in purity, devotion, and attunement, you become the blossom itself. You begin to understand that God does not only send fragrance to you, He sends it through you, so that others, even without knowing why, may feel uplifted and consoled in your presence. This is not a fragrance the physical nose can detect, nor is it a thing you can manufacture by will. It is the subtle emanation of peace, compassion, and divine love that flows naturally from a heart in union with the infinite. Yogananda would say that a true saint perfumes the atmosphere without speaking a word, because their consciousness is saturated with God. People may leave your presence saying, "I feel lighter," or "I feel hopeful," without realizing that they have inhaled, in a spiritual sense, the sweetness of the divine moving through you. Consider the flower that stands rooted in its place. It does not run about trying to spread its scent, nor does it hold back when someone draws near. It simply is what it was created to be, and by the very fact of its being, it blesses the air. In this same way, when you have cultivated stillness, love, and a constant remembrance of God, you will not have to do anything to share. His fragrance it will radiate silently from the depths of your soul. This is the true identity shift, from one who occasionally receives divine signs to one who has become a living sign of God's presence. Such a shift also brings a new humility, for you know that this fragrance is not yours in the personal sense. You are but the open chalice, the conduit through which the Beloved pours His sweetness into the world. The more you recognize this, the more freely the fragrance flows, and the more deeply others are touched without even understanding why. In this state, every glance, every touch, every word carries something of the unseen garden into the lives of those who cross your path. And yet, beloved, this transformation must be sealed, must be consciously affirmed, so that your soul never forgets its own fragrance, even in the midst of life's storms. This sealing is not about clinging to an identity, but about anchoring the awareness that your true essence is divine, eternal, and inseparable from the sweetness of God. Let us now speak together the affirmation that will imprint this knowing into every breath, every heartbeat, every step you take. Beloved, let us seal this truth now, not with fleeting thought, but with the power of spoken realization. Sit quietly, close your eyes, and feel the gentle rhythm of your breath, as though each inhalation draws you deeper into the garden of the soul, and each exhalation releases the last remnants of doubt or forgetfulness. Bring to your mind the image of a single, perfect flower bathed in morning light, its petals open, its fragrance flowing freely into the still air. Now understand, this flower is not apart from you. It is the truest reflection of your being. With your awareness centered at the spiritual eye, speak inwardly and outwardly, slowly and with deep feeling. I am the soul, pure as the fragrance of heaven, a child of the infinite. Let the words sink into the very fibers of your consciousness, not as a wish, but as a remembrance. As you repeat them again, I am the soul, pure as the fragrance of heaven, a child of the infinite, feel each syllable open the petals of your heart wider, releasing more of the sweetness that has always dwelt within you. With each repetition, breathe in the subtle perfume of your own divine nature, as though God Himself were breathing through you. Do not rush this practice. Linger with the affirmation until the boundary between you and its meaning dissolves. There will come a moment when you no longer feel as if you are affirming something. You will feel as if the affirmation is affirming you, echoing from the depths of the infinite and calling you by your eternal name. In that moment, the fragrance is no longer imagined. It becomes a living sensation, a quiet certainty that the very air around you is charged with the presence of spirit. Such affirmations are not mere mental exercises, they are acts of alignment. They train the mind to recognize what the soul already knows and to live from that place of knowing. When repeated with devotion and anchored in stillness, they leave a subtle vibration in your aura, much like the lingering scent of a flower long after it has been touched. Others may sense it in ways they cannot articulate, but the real blessing is the unbroken awareness within yourself that you are, and have always been, a child of the infinite. Carry this affirmation in your heart throughout the day, silently speaking it in moments of pause. letting it rise with your breath as naturally as the fragrance of a flower rises with the warmth of the sun. In doing so, you will find that the occasional divine fragrance becomes less a rare occurrence and more a constant state of being, a sweetness you both dwell in and share. And from this place of sealed identity, you can step into the final movement of this journey, living in continuous union with the giver of every fragrance, whether sensed through the body or simply known in the silence of the soul. Beloved, when the heart has been sealed with the remembrance of its own fragrance, life becomes a single, continuous union with the one who is the source of all sweetness. No longer do you think of God only in moments of prayer or meditation. His presence becomes the air you breathe, the invisible current flowing beneath every step, every glance, every word. The sudden floral scent that once startled you into awareness becomes a symbol, a reminder woven into the very fabric of your days that the beloved is always near, whether you feel him through the senses or sense him only in the silent depths of the soul. To live in such union is to make every sensory gift a doorway inward. When you hear a bird's song, you follow its melody back to the songgiver. When you see the golden light of sunrise, you trace it back to the light that has no setting. And when you smell a fragrance without a source, you breathe it in as if you are inhaling the breath of God himself, allowing it to carry you into stillness and gratitude. In this way, nothing in your life is ordinary. Each moment is a page in the love letter that the divine is writing to you without ceasing. Gratitude becomes the bridge between every experience and the source. It transforms fleeting moments into lasting communion. A simple thank you, whether whispered aloud or offered inwardly, turns the act of smelling a rose, hearing a kind word, or feeling a sudden peace into an exchange of love with the infinite. And as you give thanks, you notice how the fragrance of your own being grows stronger, permeating not only your heart but the space around you, touching those who come near. In this continuous union, the boundary between receiving and giving fades away. You find that every blessing you receive flows outward naturally, without calculation or effort. Just as the flower does not choose who will smell its perfume, so you do not choose who will feel the quiet lift of your presence. You live as an open channel, allowing the currents of divine love to pass through you freely, knowing they will always be replenished at their source. This is the life of one who has learned to live with God not as a distant figure, but as the unseen companion walking beside them in every moment. It is a life in which even the smallest experience, a breath, a sound, a fragrance, becomes a prayer, and every prayer becomes a step deeper into the embrace of the beloved. And from this embrace, you are ready to receive the final blessing, the assurance that such union is not a passing season, but the eternal state toward which all fragrance, all beauty, all love is leading you. Beloved, let us end where all fragrance begins, in the garden of the eternal. Know this: the perfumes that come to you unbidden are not accidents. They are threads from the tapestry of divine love, drifting into your awareness to remind you of where you belong. Sometimes they will visit often, like the steady bloom of a summer rose. Other times they may appear but once in a season, like the rare flower that opens only under the light of a hidden moon. Both are perfect, for both are sent according to the rhythm of God's will, not your desire. Welcome them without clinging, and honor them without pride. If you are blessed with such a fragrance, do not boast of it as if it were your accomplishment. It is a gift, and gifts lose their sweetness when claimed as possession. Receive it humbly, breathe it in deeply, and then release it back to the giver with a silent prayer. May this fragrance draw me closer to you. In this way, the gift fulfills its purpose. It becomes not an end in itself, but a bridge to the infinite. Picture, if you will, the gentlest waft of scent from a flower you cannot see. It moves across the air, touches your senses, and then vanishes into the unseen, leaving behind a trace of longing that is sweeter than the scent itself. That longing, beloved, is the true gift, for it stirs the heart to seek the source of all beauty. It is the soul's memory awakening, reminding you that you once walked in gardens not of this earth, where every breath was perfumed with the nearness of God. So I bless you now. May every fragrance that graces your path, whether born of the earth or of the subtle realms, be to you a holy messenger. May it lift your mind from the dust of daily cares and set it upon the heights of divine remembrance. May it awaken in you the certainty that you are never alone, that unseen hands guide you, that unseen love surrounds you, and that unseen beauty will one day become the only reality you know. And when the fragrance fades from the senses, may its echo remain in your heart, a constant sweetness that no time, no distance, no shadow can erase. Walk gently now, for you carry both the memory and the promise of that perfume within you. Let your life be the blossom, your words the petals, your actions the offering, and your very presence the fragrance that assures the weary traveler. The garden is real, and the gardener waits for us all. What happens in those first days after a loved one passes? While Western thought suggests immediate departure, ancient yogic wisdom reveals that the soul lingers for 13 days, moving through specific stages of release that most modern people remain completely unaware of, yet which profoundly impact both the departed and those left behind. This knowledge isn't based on mere belief or tradition, but on the direct perception of yogis who, through deep meditation, have developed the subtle vision to witness the soul's journey beyond physical death. I have observed this process myself through yogic vision and have guided many disciples through understanding this sacred transition. The 13 days following physical departure represent a precisely designed sequence, a spiritual science that reveals death not as an ending but as a methodical transition of consciousness from one state of being to another. Understanding this process illuminates not only what happens after we leave the body, but provides profound insights into the nature of consciousness itself. Today, I will share with you the complete understanding of the soul's 13-day journey after death, what occurs on each day, why this process exists, and most importantly, how your awareness and actions during this period can profoundly assist your departed loved ones. Many of you have experienced the loss of someone dear and felt helpless in that transition, uncertain about what they were experiencing or how you might still help them. Others worry about your own inevitable transition, wondering what awaits beyond the threshold of physical life. This knowledge addresses both concerns by revealing the precise mechanics of the after-death journey. When you understand what actually occurs during these 13 days, you transform your relationship with death itself, replacing fear and uncertainty with clarity and purposeful action. Having guided countless souls and their families through this transition, I can assure you that this understanding brings not only comfort but practical wisdom. It allows you to participate meaningfully in one of life's most sacred passages, whether supporting others or preparing for your own eventual transition. In the modern world, death has become increasingly clinical and disconnected from spiritual understanding. When someone passes, we focus primarily on physical arrangements, while remaining largely unaware of the profound spiritual process unfolding simultaneously. Most religious and cultural traditions acknowledge some form of after-death transition, but few offer specific, practical knowledge about what actually occurs day by day or how the living can actively participate in supporting this journey. This creates unnecessary suffering and missed opportunities to assist our loved ones during a crucial transition. The ancient yogic science of death, what we call Mahasamadhi, offers a remarkably precise map of what occurs during the 13 days following physical transition. This knowledge isn't theoretical or symbolic, but describes actual stages of consciousness transformation that can be perceived by those with developed spiritual sight. What makes this understanding so valuable is that it reveals death not as an ending but as a precise process of transition, one in which your awareness and actions can make a tangible difference to the departing soul. Just as birth attendants assist the soul in its entry to physical life, you can become a conscious attendant to the soul's exit, providing essential support during its journey onward. In our time together, I will guide you through the complete 13-day journey of the soul after death, explaining what occurs on each day and why this process unfolds as it does. You'll discover how consciousness gradually releases its identification with the physical body and life experience, while preparing for transition to subtler realms. You'll learn about the 3 distinct phases of this 13-day journey: the initial phase of physical detachment, the middle phase of life review and integration, and the final phase of preparing for onward transition. Each phase serves specific purposes in the soul's journey and offers unique opportunities for those still in the physical realm to provide assistance. I'll share specific practices and approaches that can meaningfully support a soul during each phase of this journey: what to do, what to avoid, and how to create the most supportive environment for this sacred transition. These include specific thoughts to hold, words to speak, actions to take, and ceremonies that assist the departing consciousness. Most importantly, I'll explain how understanding this process transforms your relationship with death itself, removing unnecessary fear and confusion, while revealing death as a profound spiritual passage that, like birth, follows intelligent and purposeful patterns designed for the soul's highest evolution. What might surprise you most is that the departed remain far more aware of and connected to this world during these 13 days than most people realize. They perceive your thoughts, emotions, and actions with remarkable clarity, often more directly than they could while in the physical body. This understanding completely transforms how you might approach the period following a loved one's transition. Let us begin by exploring the 3 distinct phases that comprise the 13-day journey of the soul after death. This understanding provides the essential framework for comprehending the entire process. The 13 days naturally divide into 3 sequential phases, each serving specific purposes in the soul's transition from physical to astral existence. These phases follow a precise order because consciousness must release its attachments systematically, much as a butterfly must emerge from its chrysalis through specific stages. The first phase encompasses days 1 through 3 and focuses on physical detachment. During these initial days, the soul gradually releases its identification with the physical body it has inhabited, often for many decades. This detachment doesn't happen instantaneously at death, as many believe, but unfolds as a process requiring specific experiences and realizations. Imagine how deeply consciousness becomes identified with the physical form through years of experience. You think of yourself as your body, its sensations, limitations, and capabilities become integral to your self-concept. This identification doesn't dissolve immediately at death, but requires a systematic release that these first 3 days facilitate. The second phase spans days 4 through 9 and centers on life review and integration. During this middle phase, the soul systematically examines the life experience it has just completed, not as judgment or punishment, but as essential understanding and wisdom gathering. This review happens in specific stages, beginning with relationships and emotional experiences, moving to choices and their consequences, and culminating in the extraction of life lessons. This phase resembles a farmer separating wheat from chaff after harvest. The specific details of life events gradually fall away, while their essential meaning and lessons are retained. This process prepares the soul to carry forward the wisdom gained, while releasing attachment to the particulars of the completed life. The third phase encompasses days 10 through 13 and focuses on preparation for transition to the appropriate astral realm. During these final days, the soul completes its earthly connections and aligns vibrationally with the subtle realm that corresponds to its level of development and karmic patterns. This phase resembles a ship gradually leaving port, first lifting anchor, then moving away from the dock, then navigating the harbor, and finally entering the open sea. The soul systematically completes its connection to the earthly plane before journeying to the appropriate level of the astral world. I witnessed these 3 phases most clearly during the transition of my own guru, Sri Yukteswar. As an advanced soul, his process unfolded with remarkable clarity, allowing me to perceive each phase distinctly through yogic vision. What struck me most was the profound intelligence guiding this process. Nothing happened randomly, but followed a precise sequence serving the highest evolution of consciousness. This 3-phase framework provides the foundation for understanding the specific experiences of each of the 13 days. Let us now explore the first phase in greater detail. The first phase, encompassing days 1 through 3, centers on the soul's gradual detachment from physical identification. This phase begins at the moment of what we call death, when consciousness withdraws from the physical body and recognizes itself as separate from it. On the first day after physical death, the soul typically experiences a period of adjustment and orientation to its changed state. Imagine awakening suddenly from a vivid dream. There is a moment of disorientation as you recognize that what seemed so real was not your waking reality. Similarly, the soul experiences a period of adjustment as it recognizes that physical life, which seems so solid and real, has now transformed. During this first day, the soul often remains very close to its recently vacated physical form and to the loved ones gathered around it. It observes the activities surrounding its body, with a mixture of detachment and interest. The soul can see and hear everything occurring around its body with remarkable clarity, though it can no longer communicate through physical means. Many souls report surprise during this first day, surprise that consciousness continues so vividly despite physical death, surprise at seeing their own body from outside it, and surprise at the emotions and reactions of those around them. This day serves as a gentle transition from physical to non-physical awareness. I recall observing a revered monk during his transition. Though his body lay still, his consciousness remained alert and present in the room throughout the first day. I could perceive his awareness moving from person to person, observing the preparations being made for his body with a sense of gentle curiosity and occasional amusement at the concern shown over what he now recognized as merely a discarded vessel. The second day brings a gradual expansion of awareness beyond the immediate vicinity of the body. The soul begins to recognize its freedom from physical limitations while still maintaining strong connections to loved ones in its recent physical life. During this day, the soul often visits places and people that held special significance during its physical lifetime. This expanded movement doesn't happen through physical space as we understand it, but through attention and thought. The soul discovers that wherever it places its attention, its awareness goes instantly. Many souls use this day to visit loved ones who may not be present at the place of death, observing them and often attempting to communicate, though few in physical form can perceive these efforts. The second day serves a crucial purpose. It allows the soul to recognize that while its physical form has died, its consciousness and identity continue. This realization is essential before the deeper release of physical identification can occur on the third day. The third day brings a more profound detachment from physical identification. Having recognized its continued existence beyond the body, the soul now begins to release the self-concept built around physical form. This can be compared to removing a garment that has been worn for many years. The impression of that garment remains even after it is removed. During this third day, many souls experience moments of profound freedom as they recognize capabilities that were limited by physical existence, the ability to move instantly through thought, to perceive beyond physical senses, and to experience a lighter, more expanded state of being. Yet this freedom often alternates with pulls back toward physical identification, creating a rhythmic process of release. I observed this third-day process most clearly with a close disciple who had been severely disabled in his final years. As his consciousness moved through this day, I could perceive moments when he would suddenly recognize his freedom from physical limitations, experiencing joyous expansion, followed by periods of momentary confusion as habit pulled his awareness back to expected limitations. By the end of this day, the recognition of freedom had become more stable and continuous. This 3-day phase of physical detachment prepares the soul for the deeper process of life review that follows. Only when identification with physical form has been sufficiently released can the soul engage fully with the more subtle aspects of its life experience. For those of you supporting someone during these first 3 days, understand that your thoughts and emotions reach them with remarkable clarity. They perceive not just your external actions, but your internal states. Creating an atmosphere of calm acceptance rather than desperate clinging provides significant assistance during this phase of transition. Now let us explore the second phase, the 6 days of life review and integration that form the central portion of the 13-day journey. The second phase, spanning days 4 through 9, constitutes the longest and perhaps most significant portion of the 13-day journey. During these 6 days, the soul systematically reviews, processes, and integrates the essence of the life experience it has just completed. This review is not the harsh judgment depicted in some religious traditions, nor is it a passive reminiscence. Rather, it is an active process of understanding, wisdom extraction, and integration that prepares the soul to carry forward the essential growth from its completed lifetime while releasing attachment to specific events and circumstances. Days 4 and 5 focus primarily on relationships and emotional experiences. The soul reviews its connections with others, family, friends, partners, colleagues, and even brief encounters that carried significant emotional impact. This review occurs not just as memory but as a vivid re-experiencing that reveals deeper patterns and purposes. During these 2 days, the soul perceives not only its own perspective, but can also experience interactions from others' viewpoints, providing profound insights into relationship dynamics that may have been unclear during physical life. The soul recognizes how its actions and attitudes affected others, and how others' behaviors influenced its own development. I recall observing a woman during this phase who had experienced significant conflict with her daughter during physical life. As she reviewed their relationship, she could now perceive the deep love underlying their disagreements and understand how their challenges had served both souls' evolution. This understanding brought a profound healing and release of remaining tension between them. What's particularly notable during days 4 and 5 is that the soul can perceive the continuing threads of its relationships, seeing how connections formed in this lifetime relate to past associations and will influence future interactions. This broader perspective helps release specific grievances while retaining the wisdom gained through each relationship. Days 6 and 7 shift focus to the review of choices, motivations, and their consequences. During these days, the soul examines the major decisions of its lifetime, the intentions behind them, and the ripple effects these choices created, not with judgment but with a desire for deeper understanding. This examination includes not only external choices, career paths, major life decisions, actions taken or avoided, but also internal choices of attitude, belief, and perception that shape the soul's experience. The soul recognizes how certain patterns of thought and choice created corresponding patterns of experience. What becomes evident during days 6 and 7 is the perfect justice of life's unfolding, how each experience, pleasant or challenging, served the soul's evolution in precisely the way needed. The soul recognizes that what seemed like hardships often provided the exact conditions required for essential growth that could not have occurred otherwise. A businessman I observed during this phase had experienced both remarkable success and devastating failure during his lifetime. As he reviewed these experiences, he perceived how his greatest spiritual growth had come not through success, but through the humility and reassessment that followed failure. What had seemed like disaster revealed itself as disguised grace, a recognition that brought profound peace. Days 8 and 9 complete the life review process with a focus on integrating the essence of life lessons while preparing to release attachment to specific details. During these days, the soul distills the wisdom gained through the lifetime into its essential form, retaining the growth while letting go of the particular circumstances that facilitated it. This process resembles a student who, having thoroughly studied a subject and passed the examination, no longer needs to retain every detail of the textbook, but carries forward the essential understanding and capabilities developed. The soul preserves the wisdom gained while releasing attachment to the specific events that generated it. A mother whose child had preceded her in death experienced profound healing during these days. As she integrated the essence of this relationship, she recognized that the love developed through their bond remained undiminished even as attachment to the specific form of their relationship transformed. This integration allowed her to carry forward the love while releasing the grief associated with specific memories. Throughout this 6-day review process, the soul's attention gradually shifts from specific life events toward their essential meaning and forward implications. By the conclusion of the 9th day, the soul has largely completed its processing of the lifetime just ended and stands ready to release remaining earthly attachments in preparation for its onward journey. For those supporting a soul during this second phase, it's most helpful to recall and speak of the departed's life with appreciation for its wisdom and growth, rather than with regret for its difficulties or ending. Expressing gratitude for shared experiences provides meaningful support, as does forgiving any perceived hurts or disappointments. These actions directly assist the soul's own process of integration and release. Let us now explore the final phase, the 4 days of preparation for transition that complete the 13-day journey. The third phase, encompassing days 10 through 13, focuses on the soul's preparation for transition beyond the earthly plane to the appropriate astral realm. Having released physical identification and integrated the essence of its life experience, the soul now completes its earthly connections and aligns with the vibrational realm that corresponds to its level of development. Days 10 and 11 bring a gradual withdrawal of attention from earthly concerns and connections. While still aware of the physical world and loved ones, the soul's focus increasingly shifts toward the subtle realms it will soon enter. This shift doesn't indicate diminished love for those left behind, but reflects the soul's natural evolution toward its next stage of existence. During these 2 days, Many souls report experiencing increasing glimpses of the astral realms, brief perceptions of the light, landscapes, and beings of the subtle worlds they will soon enter. These glimpses come as brief experiences at first, gradually extending as the soul becomes more attuned to these higher vibrations. I observed my own father during this phase of his transition. Though he had been deeply attached to family and worldly responsibilities during life, his attention now alternated between awareness of his loved ones and growing absorption in the beautiful spiritual realms opening before him. By the 11th day, his consciousness was primarily focused on these higher realms, though he could still perceive when his family specifically directed thoughts toward him. This gradual withdrawal serves an important purpose. It allows both the departing soul and those remaining in physical form to adjust progressively to their separation, preventing the shock that would come with sudden, complete disconnection. The 12th day brings a more specific alignment with the particular astral realm that corresponds to the soul's level of development and karmic patterns. The astral world contains many levels or frequencies, each matching specific states of consciousness. During this 12th day, the soul naturally resonates with and begins to tune into the specific frequency that matches its own vibration. This process resembles tuning a radio receiver to a specific frequency. As the dial turns, the soul begins to pick up more clearly the broadcast from the particular astral realm where it will continue its journey. This alignment happens naturally, not through external judgment but through the soul's own vibrational resonance. An advanced meditation student I observed during this day had cultivated significant spiritual awareness during his lifetime. As his consciousness moved through the 12th day, I could perceive him resonating with increasingly refined astral realms, naturally drawn toward the higher frequencies that matched his own spiritual development. This process unfolded not as reward or punishment but as natural affinity, like seeking across the threshold between worlds. The 13th and final day brings the completion of the soul's earthly sojourn and its transition beyond the earthly sphere. During this day, the last subtle connections to the physical plane are systematically released as the soul completes its preparation for the onward journey. This final release often coincides with the ceremonies performed on the 13th day in many traditions. These ceremonies, when performed with understanding, provide meaningful assistance to the departing soul, acknowledging the completion of its earthly chapter and blessing its onward journey. By the conclusion of the 13th day, the soul has typically completed its transition from earth consciousness and moves fully into the astral realm that corresponds to its level of development. While connections of love remain across this threshold, the soul's identification with its recent physical incarnation is largely dissolved as it embraces the next phase of its eternal journey. This 13-day process reflects the profound intelligence governing the soul's journey. Nothing in this transition happens randomly or without purpose. Each day serves specific functions in the systematic release of physical consciousness in preparation for continuing evolution in subtler realms. Now, let me share how you can assist a soul during this 13-day journey, specific approaches that provide meaningful support during each phase of this sacred transition. The most important understanding is that your consciousness remains tangibly connected to the departed during these 13 days. Your thoughts, emotions, and actions are perceived by them with remarkable clarity, often more directly than was possible during physical life, when the body's limitations created certain barriers to direct perception. During the first phase of physical detachment, days 1-3, the most helpful approach is to create an atmosphere of calm acceptance and permission for the transition process. Excessive grief or desperate attempts to hold on to the departed can create confusion and difficulty for the soul as it works to release physical identification. Speak to the departed directly, even though they cannot respond through physical means. Assure them of your love, express gratitude for your shared journey, and most importantly, give explicit permission for them to continue their journey without feeling they must stay to care for those left behind. This permission to move forward provides tremendous assistance during these initial days. The physical environment also matters during this phase. Creating a peaceful atmosphere around the body with appropriate music, incense, or silence according to the departed spiritual tradition helps facilitate smooth transition. Reading from spiritual texts that held meaning for the departed can provide valuable guidance and orientation. During the second phase of life review and integration, days 4-9, The most supportive approach is to recall and speak of the departed's life with appreciation for its wisdom, growth, and contributions, rather than with regret for its difficulties or ending. Share stories that highlight the departed's positive qualities and contributions. Express gratitude for specific shared experiences and lessons. If there were unresolved conflicts or disappointments, express forgiveness sincerely. These expressions directly assist the soul's own process of integration and release, making the life review more harmonious and complete. During this phase, performing acts of charity or service in honor of the departed also provides meaningful support. These actions create positive energy that the soul can perceive and that assists in the integration process. Even simple acts feeding the hungry, helping those in need, or supporting causes that mattered to the departed create beneficial effects during this phase. During the final phase of preparation for transition, days 10-13, the most helpful approach is to gradually shift from holding on to blessing the soul's onward journey. Recognize that your loved one is preparing for continuation, not ending, and that your blessing of this journey provides significant assistance. The traditional ceremonies often performed on the 13th day serve important functions when conducted with understanding. They acknowledge the completion of the soul's earthly chapter and create supportive energy for its onward journey. These ceremonies need not be elaborate. Their power lies in the consciousness and intention behind them rather than in their external form. Throughout the entire 13-day period, meditation with focused awareness on the departed provides direct support. In meditation, the barriers between physical and subtle realms thin, allowing more direct communion with the transitioning soul. Even those without formal meditation training can create this connection through quiet, focused attention directed toward their loved one with thoughts of peace and blessing. Remember that the departed perceive your internal state more clearly than your external actions during this time. Your genuine peace and acceptance provide more assistance than elaborately performed rituals without understanding. The consciousness behind your actions matters more than their outer form. As we conclude our exploration of this sacred knowledge, I want to emphasize that understanding the 13-day journey of the soul after death transforms not only how you relate to the transition of loved ones, but to the very nature of life itself. When you recognize that death is not an ending, but a precise and purposeful transition, much of the fear surrounding it naturally dissolves. You begin to see physical life as one chapter in an ongoing journey of consciousness, a chapter with profound purpose, but not the entire story. For those of you who have recently lost someone dear, know that your thoughts, emotions, and actions continue to reach them during these 13 days with remarkable clarity. Your calm, loving presence and understanding of their journey provide genuine assistance. Your grief does not burden them, it is natural and understood, but your conscious support genuinely lights their path. For those preparing for your own eventual transition, this knowledge serves as a practical map for what you will experience. Just as knowing the stages of birth helps an expectant mother, understanding the stages of death helps prepare consciousness for this universal journey. This preparation itself creates a more peaceful and conscious transition when that time arrives. Remember that the 13-day period represents an opportunity, a sacred window when you can still participate in the journey of those who have passed beyond physical form. Your understanding, your prayers, your conscious thoughts create tangible support for their onward path. If you found value in this teaching, I invite you to explore my video on the nature of the astral worlds, where I reveal what awaits the soul after completing this 13-day transition. Understanding the realms beyond provides even greater context for the journey we've explored today. Until we meet again, may this ancient wisdom bring peace to your heart, clarity to your mind, and a deeper understanding of life's most profound transition.